Did you hear what I was playing, Lane?
Didn't think it polite to listen, sir.
Well, I'm sorry for that for your sake. I don't play accurately. Anyone can play accurately. I play with a wonderful expression. As far as the piano is concerned, sentiment is my forte. I keep science for life.
Yes, sir.
And speaking of science of life, have you got those cucumber sandwiches cut for Lady Bracknell?
Yes, sir.
Where are they?
Here, sir.
Goody! Lane, I saw from your books last Thursday that when Lord Shorman and Mr. Worthing dined with me, 8 bottles of champagne were entered in being consumed.
Yes, sir. 8 bottles and a pint.
Why is it that at a bachelor's establishment, the servants invariably drink the champagne?
I attribute
I ask merely information, of course.
I attribute it to the superior quality of the wine, sir. I've often observed that in married households, the wine is rarely of a first-rate brand.
Good heavens! Is marriage so demoralizing as that?
I believe it is a very pleasant state, sir. I have very little experience of it myself. I've only been married once. That was a consequence of a misunderstanding between myself and a young person.
I don't think that I'm much interested in your family life, Lane.
No, sir, it is not a very interesting subject. I never think of it myself.
Very natural, I'm sure. Thank you, Lane. That'll do.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, Lane, just hand me one more of those cucumber sandwiches. Thank you, Lane.
Thank you, sir.
Lane's views on marriage seem somewhat lax. I mean, really, if the lower orders aren't meant to set us a good example, what is the use of them? They seem, as a class, to have no sense of moral responsibility.
Mr. Ernest Worthing!
Oh, my dear Ernest, how are you? Oh, what brings you to town?
Oh, pleasure. What else would bring anyone anywhere? Eating as usual. I see, Algie.
I believe it is customary in good society to have some slight refreshment at 5 o'clock. Where have you been since last Thursday?
Oh, in the country.
Oh, what on earth are you doing there?
Oh, Algernon, when one is in town, one amuses oneself. When one is in the country, one amuses others. They're excessively boring.
Who are the people you amuse?
Oh, neighbours.
Oh, got nice neighbours in your part of Shropshire?
No, they're perfectly horrid. Never speak to any of them.
Oh, how immensely you must amuse them. By the way, Shropshire's in your county, is it not?
Shropshire? Yes, of course. Hello? Why all these cups? Why cucumber sandwiches? Why such reckless extravagance in one who is so young? Who's coming to tea?
Oh, merely Aunt Augusta. And Gwendolyn.
It's perfectly delightful.
Oh, yes, that is all very well, but I'm afraid Aunt Augusta won't quite approve of you being here.
And may I ask you why?
My dear fellow, the way you flirt with Gwendolyn is perfectly disgraceful. It's almost as bad as the way Gwendolyn flirts with you.
Oh, what? I've come to town expressively to propose to Gwendolyn.
I thought you'd come for pleasure. I call that business.
Oh, Algernon, how utterly unromantic you are.
Oh, it is very romantic to be in love, but there's nothing romantic about a definite proposal. Why, one may be accepted. One usually is, I'm afraid. And then the excitement is all gone. The very essence of romance is the uncertainty. If I were ever married, I would certainly try to forget the fact.
Oh, I have no doubt about that, dear Algie. The divorce court was specifically invented for those whose minds are so curiously constituted.
Oh, there is no use speculating that subject. The divorce courts were made in heaven. Oh, please! Do not touch the cucumber sandwiches. They were ordered specially for Aunt Augusta.
But you've been eating them the whole time.
Well, that is an entirely different matter. She is my aunt. You can have the bread and butter. The bread and butter is for Gwendolyn. Gwendolyn is devoted to bread and butter.
Very good bread and butter it is too.
Oh, my dear fellow, you need not eat as if you're going to eat it all. You behave as if you're married to her already. You're not married to her already, nor do I think you ever will be.
May I ask why you say that?
Oh, in first place, girls never marry the men they flirt with. Girls don't think it's right. And in second place, I don't give my consent.
Your consent?
Gwendolyn is my first cousin, and before I can allow you to marry her, you must clear up the whole question of Cecily.
Cecily? What do you mean by Cecily? I don't know anyone by the name of Cecily as far as I can recall. Algie, Look at me. What are you talking about?
Bring the cigarette case that Mr. Worthing left in the smoking room last time he dined here.
Yes, sir.
Do you mean to tell me you've had my cigarette case this whole time? I wish to goodness you'd let me know. I've been frantic letters to Scotland Yard about it. I was nearly faring a large reward.
Well, I wish you would. I seem to be more than usually hard up.
There's no use offering a reward if the thing's found.
Thank you, Lane. Oh, I find it rather mean of you, Ernest, I must say. However, now that I look in the inscription inside, I find the thing isn't yours after all.
What? Of course it's mine. You've seen me with that 100 times, and you have no right whatsoever to read what's written inside. It's a perfectly ungentlemanly action to read what's written inside one's private cigarette case.
Oh, it's absurd to have a hard and fast rule about what one should read and what one shouldn't read. Why, one should read everything. Half of modern culture depends on what one shouldn't read.
Yes, but I don't propose that we discuss modern culture. It's not the sort of thing that one should talk about in private. I simply want my cigarette case back, Algie.
Yes, but this isn't your cigarette case. This cigarette case is a present from someone of the name of Cecily. And you said you didn't know anyone of that name.
Yes, well, if you must know, she happens to be my aunt.
Your aunt?
Yes, she's my aunt. She's an old lady and lives in Tunbridge Wells, and she's a charming old lady she is, too. Just give me back my cigarette case, Algie.
Yes, but why does she call herself Little Cecily? From Little Cecily with her fondest love.
My dear fellow, what on earth is there in that? Some ants are tall, some ants are not tall. That's surely an object that an aunt may be allowed to decide for herself. You seem to think that every aunt should be the same size as your aunt, and I think that's absolutely absurd. Please, the cigarette case, Algernon.
Yes, but why does she call you her uncle? From Little Cecily with her fondest love to dear Uncle Jack. There is no objection, I admit, to an aunt being a small aunt, but why an aunt, no matter what her size may be, shall call her own nephew her uncle? I can't make it out. Besides, your name isn't Jack at all. It's Ernest.
It isn't Ernest, it's Jack.
Oh, but you have always told me it was Ernest. You answered the name of Ernest. I have introduced you to everyone as Ernest. You look as if your name is Ernest. You are the most earnest-looking person I've ever saw in my entire life. It's absurd you saying your name isn't Ernest. Why, it's on your cards. Here's one. Mr. Ernest Worthing, B4 the Albany W. I shall keep this as proof should you try to deny your name to me, to Gwendolyn, or to anyone else.
Yes, but the cigarette case was given to me in the country, and my name is Ernest in the town and Jack in the country.
Yes, but that does not account for your small Aunt Cecily, who lives in Tunbridge Wells, calls you her uncle. Come on, old boy, you better outdo the thing at once.
Algernon, you're talking exactly as if you were a dentist. It's perfectly vulgar to speak like a dentist when one isn't a dentist. It produces a false impression.
Well, that is exactly what dentists always do. Now, tell me the whole thing, and might I add that I have always suspected you of being a complete and secret Bunburyist.
Bunburyist? What on earth do you mean by Bunburyist?
I will reveal the meaning of that incomparable expression as soon as you are kind enough to reveal to me why you are Ernest in the town and Jack in the country.
Well, produce my cigarette case fast.
Here you go. Now produce your explanation, and pray make it improbable.
Oh, Algernon, there's nothing improbable about my explanation at all. In fact, it's perfectly ordinary. The old man, Mr. Thomas Cardew, who adopted me under rather peculiar circumstances when I was a very little boy and left me all the money that I possessed, he made me and his will guardian to his granddaughter Cecily Cardew. Cecily, who addresses me as uncle from motives of respect you could not possibly appreciate, lives at my place in the country under the charge of the admirable governess, Miss Prism.
And where is this place in the country?
There's nothing to you, dear boy. You're never going to be invited. But I might candidly say that the place is not in Shropshire.
Well, I suspected that. I have Bunburied all over Shropshire on 2 separate occasions. Now, continue. Why are you Ernest in the town and Jack in the country?
My dear fellow, I don't know that you'll be able to understand my true motives. You're hardly serious enough. When one is placed in the position of guardian, one has to adopt a very high moral tone on all subjects. It's one's duty to do so. And as one with a very high moral tone can hardly be said to conduce very much to one's health or to one's happiness, in order to get up to the town and then back to the country, I've always pretended to have a younger brother by the name of Ernest, who's always getting into the dreadfulest of scrapes. And that, my dear brother, is the truth and the whole truth, pure and simple.
Oh, the truth is rarely pure and never simple. Modern life would be very tedious if it were either, and modern literature would be a complete impossibility.
Yes, and that wouldn't at all be a bad thing.
Oh, literary criticism is not your forte, my dear fellow. Don't try it. Leave that to the people who haven't been to university. They do so well of it in the daily papers. No, what you are is a Bunburyist. I was quite right in saying you're a Bunburyist. In fact, you are one of the most advanced Bunburyists I know.
What on earth do you mean?
You have invented a very useful younger brother so that you may be able to come up to the town whenever you'd like. I have invented a perfect invalid known as Bunbury so that I may go down to the country whenever I like.
That's nonsense.
It isn't nonsense. If it weren't for Bunbury's extraordinary bad health, for example, I wouldn't be able to dine with you tonight at the Savoy. I've really been engaged to Aunt Augusta for more than a week.
But I haven't asked you to dine anywhere with me tonight.
I know. You are perfectly careless about sending out invitations. It's quite foolish of you. In fact, nothing annoys a person more than not receiving invitations.
Well, in any case, I can't dine at the Savoy. I owe them £700. They're always getting judgments and things against me. They bother my life out.
Why on earth don't you just pay it? You've got heaps of money.
Yes, but Earnest hasn't, and I have to keep up Earnest's reputation. Ernest is one of those chaps that never pays a bill. He gets rated about once a week.
Oh, let us dine at Willis's.
You'd better dine with your Aunt Augusta.
Oh, I haven't got the smallest intention of doing anything of the kind. To begin with, I dine there Monday, and once a week is more than enough to dine with one's own relations. In second place, I know exactly who she'll place me next to tonight. Lady Farquhar, who always flirts with her own husband from across the dinner table. Oh, it's not very pleasant. In fact, it's not even decent. And that sort of thing is on the rise nowadays. The amount of women who flirt with their own husbands in London is perfectly scandalous. It looks so bad, like washing one's own clean linen in public. Besides, now that I know you to be a Bunburyist, naturally I'm going to want to talk to you about Bunburying. I want to tell you the rules.
I'm not a Bunburyist at all. If Gwendolen accepts me, I'm going to kill my brother Ernest. Yes, I think I'm going to kill him in any case. In fact, Cecily's become a bit too attached to him. She's always asking me to forgive him and things like that. It's really quite a bore. So yes, I'm going to kill my brother Ernest, and I suggest you do the same for your brother, or your friend, the absurd friend with the absurd name.
Oh, I will do nothing of the sort. Nothing will induce me to part from Bunbury. And if you are to be married, which seems to be extremely problematic, you will be happy to know Bunbury. A man who marries without knowing Bunbury has an extremely tedious time of it.
If Gwendolen accepts me, and she's the only woman I ever saw that I would like to marry, I certainly won't want to know any kind of Bunbury.
No, then your wife will. You seem to forget that in married life, 3 is a company and 2 is none.
Oh, that, my friend, is the theory that the corrupt Prince Drama has been propounding for the last 50 years.
Yes, and a happy English home has proven in half the time.
No, don't be cynical, Algy. It's perfectly easy to be cynical.
Oh, it's not easy to be anything nowadays. There is so much beastly competition about. That must be Aunt Augusta. Only relatives and creditors ring in that Wagnerian manner. Now, if I am able to get her out of the way for 10 minutes, so that you may propose to Gwendolen, may I dine with you tonight at Willis's?
I suppose if you want.
Yes, but you have got to be serious about it. I hate people who are not serious about meals. It is so shallow of them.
Lady Bracknell and Miss Fairfax.
Good afternoon, dear Algernon. I hope you are behaving very well.
Oh, I'm feeling very well, Aunt Augusta.
Well, that's not quite the same thing. In fact, the two rarely go together.
Oh, dear me, you are smart.
I am always smart. Am I not, Mr. Worthing?
Oh, you're quite perfect, Miss Fairfax.
Well, I hope I am not that. It would leave no room for developments. And I intend to develop in many directions.
I'm sorry if we're a little late to Algernon, but I was obliged to call on dear Lady Harbury. I hadn't been there since her poor husband's death. I never saw a woman so altered. She looks quite 20 years younger. And now I'll have a cup of tea and one of those nice cucumber sandwiches you promised me.
Certainly, Aunt Augusta.
Won't you come and sit here, Gwendolen?
Thank you, Mamma. I'm quite comfortable where I am.
Oh, Lane, why are there no cucumber sandwiches? I ordered them specially for Aunt Augusta.
There are no cucumbers at the market, sir.
No cucumbers? Thank you, Lane. That'll do.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, Aunt Augusta, I am very distraught at there being no cucumbers. Not even for ready money.
Really makes no matter, Algernon. I had some crumpets with Lady Harbury, who seems to be living entirely for pleasure now.
Oh, yes, I hear her hair has turned quite gold from grief.
It certainly has changed its colour. From what cause, of course, I cannot say. Thank you. I have quite a treat for you tonight, Algernon. I am going to send you down with Marie Farquhar. She's such a nice woman, so attentive to her husband. It's delightful to watch them.
I'm afraid, Aunt Augusta, that I won't quite have the pleasure of dining with you tonight after all.
I hope not, Algernon, for it would put my table completely out. Your uncle would have to dine upstairs. Fortunately, he's accustomed to that.
Yes, it is a great bore, and I need hardly say a terrible tragedy. However, I've received a telegram telling me that my poor friend Bunbury is dreadfully ill again. They seem to think I should be with him.
This Mr. Bunbury seems to suffer from curiously bad health.
Yes, Bunbury is a dreadful invalid.
Well, Algernon, I think it is high time that Mr. Bunbury made up his mind whether he was going to live or to die. This shilly-shallying with the question is absurd. Nor do I in any way approve of the modern sympathy with invalids. I consider it morbid. Illness is hardly a thing to be encouraged in others. Health is the primary duty of life. I'm always telling that to your poor uncle, but he never seems to take much notice as far as any improvement of his ailment goes. Well, Algernon, if you are obliged to be beside the bedside of Mr. Bunbury, I have nothing more to say, but I would be much obliged if you would ask Mr. Bunbury from me to be kind enough not to have a relapse on Saturday, for I rely on you to arrange my music for me. It is my last reception, and one wants something that will encourage conversation, particularly at the end of the season when everyone has practically said what they had to say, which in most cases was probably not much.
Certainly, Aunt Augusta. I will talk to Bunbury, and I believe I can promise you that he'll be all right by Saturday. As for the music, of course, that will be its own great difficulty. You see, if one plays music well, people don't listen. And if one plays music badly, people don't talk. If you'll be so kind to follow me into the next room, I can show you the program I've drawn up.
Thank you, Algernon. It is very thoughtful of you. The program will be delightful after a few expurgations. French songs I cannot possibly allow. People always seem to think they're improper and either look shocked, which is vulgar, or laugh, which is worse. But German sounds a thoroughly respectable language, and indeed, I believe it so. Katelyn, you will accompany me.
Certainly, Mamma.
Charming day it's been, Miss Fairfax.
Pray, don't talk to me about the weather, Mr. Worthing. Whenever people talk to me about the weather, I always feel quite certain that they mean something else, and that makes me so nervous.
Oh, but I do mean something else.
I thought so. In fact, I am never wrong.
I would like to take advantage of Lady Bracknell's temporary absence.
Well, I should certainly advise you to do so. Mamma has a way of coming back suddenly into a room that I've often had to speak to her about.
Gwendolen, ever since the day I've met you, I've loved you more than any woman I'd ever met. Since the day I met you.
Yes, I am quite well aware of the fact. And I often wish that in public at any rate you had been more, well, demonstrative. But for me, you have always had an irresistible fascination. Why, even before I met you, I was far from indifferent to you. We live, as I certainly hope you know, Mr. Worthing, in an age of ideals. The fact is constantly mentioned in the more expensive monthly magazines and has now reached provincial pulpits, I am told. And my ideal has always been to love someone of the name of Earnest. There is something in that name that inspires absolute confidence. The moment Algernon first told me that he had a friend called Earnest, I knew I was destined to love you. The name, fortunately for my peace of mind, is, as far as my own experience goes, extremely rare.
Do you really love me, Gwendolen?
Passionately. You don't know how happy you just made me. Oh, my own Ernest!
You don't mean to say that you couldn't love me if my name wasn't Ernest?
But your name is Ernest.
Yes, but supposing that it was something else, do you really mean to say that you couldn't love me then?
Well, that is clearly a metaphysical speculation. And like most metaphysical speculations, there's very little reference at all to the actual facts of real life as we know them.
Yes, darling, but to be quite candid, I don't think I care very much for the name of Ernest. I don't think it suits me at all.
It suits you perfectly. It is a divine name. It has a music of its own. It produces vibrations.
Well, there's lots of other great names out there, like Jack, for instance. That's a charming name.
Jack. No. There is very little music in the name Jack, if any at all indeed. It does not thrill. It produces absolutely no vibrations. No. I have known several Jacks, and they all, without exception, were more than usually plain. Besides, Jack has a notorious domesticity for John. And I pity any woman who has to be married to a man called John, because she would probably have a very tedious life with him, and she would probably never be allowed to know the entrancing pleasure of a single moment's solitude. No! The only really safe name is Earnest.
Gwendolyn, I must get christened at once. We must get married at once.
Married, Mr. Worthing?
Well, you've led me to believe that you're not entirely indifferent to me, and, well, you know that I love you.
I adore you! But you haven't proposed to me yet. Nothing's been said at all about marriage. The subject has not even been touched on.
May I propose now?
Well, I think it would be an admirable opportunity. And to spare you any possible disappointment, Mr. Worthing, I think it only fair to tell you quite frankly beforehand that I am fully determined to accept you.
Gwendolyn.
Yes, Mr. Worthing. What have you got to say to me?
You know what I've got to say to you?
Yes, but you don't say it.
Gwendolyn, will you marry me?
Nothing about it. I am afraid you have had very little experience in how to propose.
My own one, you're the only woman I've ever loved.
Well, yes, but men often propose for practice. At least I know my brother Gerald does, because all my girlfriends tell me so. Why, what wonderfully blue eyes you have, Ernest. They're quite blue. I hope you will always look at me like that, especially when there are other people present.
Mr. Worthing, rise, sir, from the semi-recumbent posture. It is most indecorous.
Mamma! I must beg you to retire. This is no place for you, and besides, Mr. Worthing has not quite finished yet.
Finished what, may I ask?
I am engaged and married to Mr. Worthing, Mamma.
Pardon me, you are nothing of the kind. An engagement should always come on a young girl as a surprise. Pleasant or unpleasant as the case may be, it can hardly be a matter she should be allowed to arrange for herself. Now I have a few questions to put to you, Mr. Worthing.
I shall be charmed to reply to any questions, Lady Bracknell.
Oh, you mean if you know the answers to them? Mamma's questions are sometimes peculiarly inquisitorial.
I intend to make them very inquisitorial. And while I'm making these inquiries, you, Gwendolyn, wait for me below in the cottage.
But Mamma!
In the cottage, Gwendolyn!
Yes, Mamma!
Gwendolyn! The cottage! You can take a seat, Mr. Worthing.
Thank you, Lady Bracknell. I prefer to say standing.
I feel bound to tell you you're not down on my list of eligible young men, although I have the same list as the dear Duchess of Woolton has. We work together, in fact. However, I'm quite ready to enter your name should your answers be what a really affectionate mother requires. Do you smoke?
Well, yes, Lady Bracknell, I must admit, I do smoke.
I'm pleased to hear it. A man should always have an occupation of some kind. There are far too many idle men in London as it is. How old are you?
29?
A very good age to be married at. I've always been of the opinion that a man who desires to get married should either know everything or nothing. Which do you know?
Nothing, Lady Bracknell.
I'm pleased to hear it. I do not approve of anything that tampers with natural ignorance. Ignorance is like a delicate, exotic fruit. Touch it and the bloom is gone. The whole theory of modern education is radically unsound. Fortunately, at England, at any rate, education produces no effect whatsoever. If it did, it would prove a serious danger to the upper classes. It probably lead to acts of violence in Grosvenor Square. What is your income?
8,000 a year.
In land or in investments?
Investments, chiefly.
That is satisfactory. What between the duties expected of one during one's lifetime and the duties exacted from one after one's death, land has ceased to be either a profit or a pleasure. It gives one position and prevents one from keeping it up. That's all that can be said about land.
I have a country with some land attached to it, about 15 acres, in fact, but I don't depend on any of that for my real income. In fact, I think the poachers are the only people that can get anything out of it.
A country house? How many bedrooms? Well, that point could be cleared up afterwards. You have a townhouse, I hope. A girl with a simple, unspoiled nature like Gwendolyn could hardly be expected to reside in the country.
Yes, well, I have a house in Belgrave Square. Of course, it's let by the year to Lady Bloxham, but I can get it back at any time with 6 months' notice.
Lady Bloxham? I don't know her.
She's considerably advanced in years. She goes about very little.
Nowadays, there's no guarantee for respectability of character. What number in Belgrave Square?
149.
The unfashionable side. I thought that was something. However, that can be easily altered.
The fashion or the side?
Both, if necessary, I presume. What are your politics?
Well, I'm afraid I have none. I am a liberal unionist.
The Countess Tories. They dine with us, or come in the evening at any rate. You, of course, have no sympathy with the radical party.
Oh, no. My father was a very charitable man, though I never met him. In fact, it seems I have lost both of my parents, Lady Bracknell.
Both? To lose one parent may be regarded as a misfortune. To lose both seems like carelessness. Who was your father? He was evidently a man of some wealth. Was he born in what the radical papers call the purple of commerce? Or did he rise from the ranks of the aristocracy?
Well, Lady Bracknell, you see, I told you that I lost both of my parents, but it would be nearer to the truth to say that my parents seem to have lost me. I don't really know who I am by birth. I was found.
Found?
Yes, an old man, Mr. Thomas Cardew, a man of a very kindly and charitable disposition, found me and gave me the name of Worthing because he happened to have a first-class ticket to Worthing in his pocket at the time. Worthing is a place in Sussex. It's a seaside resort.
And where did this charitable gentleman who had a first-class ticket to the seaside resort find you?
In a handbag.
A handbag!
Handbag! A somewhat large black leather handbag with handles to it. A perfectly ordinary handbag.
In what locality did this Mr. James and Thomas Cardew come across this ordinary handbag?
In the cloakroom at Victoria Station. It was given to him by mistake of his own.
The cloakroom at Victoria Station?
Yes, the Brighton line.
Oh, the line is immaterial! Mr. Worthing, I confess, I feel somewhat bewildered by what you have just told me. To be born, or at any rate bred in a handbag, whether it had handles or not, seems to me to display contempt for the ordinary decencies of family life that reminds one of the worst excesses of the French Revolution. And I presume you know what that unfortunate movement led to. As for the particular locality in which the handbag was found, a cloakroom at a railway station might serve to conceal a social indiscretion. It has probably been used for that exact purpose before now. But it can hardly be regarded as an assured basis for a recognized position in good society.
Well, then may I ask you, Lady Bracknell, what you suppose that I should do? I need hardly say that I'd do anything to give Gwendolyn her happiness.
I would strongly advise you, Mr. Worthing, to try and acquire some relations as soon as possible, and to make a definite effort to produce one parent of either sex before the season is quite over.
Well, I don't see how I could possibly do that, Lady Bracknell. I can produce the handbag at any moment. It's in my dressing room at home. That should be satisfactory to you, Lady Bracknell.
Me, sir? What is it to do with me? You could hardly imagine that I and Lord Bracknell would dream of allowing our only daughter, a girl brought up with the utmost care, to marry into a cloakroom and form an alliance with a parcel. Kindly open the door for me, sir. You of course understand that for the future there is to be no communication of any kind between you and Miss Fairfax.
Algernon! Algernon, stop playing that ghastly tune! How idiotic you are!
Didn't it go off all right, old boy? Oh. You don't mean to tell me Gwendolyn refused you? I know it's the way she has, always refusing people. I find it very ill-natured of her.
Gwendolyn is right as a trivet. As far as she's concerned, we're engaged. Her mother, on the other hand, is perfectly unbearable. I've never met such a gorgon. In fact, I've never really met a gorgon in my life, but I'm quite sure that she is a gorgon. In fact, she's a monster without being a myth, and I think that's perfectly unfair. Is it? I'm sorry, Algernon. I shouldn't talk about your relations before you in that way.
No, I love hearing my relations abused. It's the only thing that allows me to put up with them at all. Relations seem to be a very tedious pack of people who haven't got the remotest idea on how to live, nor the smallest instinct on when to die.
I haven't got any relations. I don't know anything about relations.
Oh, well, you're a lucky fellow. Relations never lend one any money, nor give one credit, not even for genius. They seem to be an aggravated form of the public.
Yes, well, after all, what does one care whether or not a man has a father or not? I mean, mothers are all right, of course. They pay a chap's bills and they don't bother a chap, but fathers bother a chap and they never pay his bills. I don't know a single chap at the club who talks about his father.
Yes, so I've heard. Father's not particularly popular at present.
Oh, popular! I bet you anything you like that not a single chap out of all the chaps that you and I know could be seen walking down St. James Street with his own father. Is anything in the papers?
Nothing.
What a comfort.
Yes, there's never anything in the papers as far as I can see.
I think there's often a great deal too much in them. They're always bothering one about people one doesn't know, one has never met, and one doesn't care two pence about.
I think people who one hasn't met are charming. I happen to be very interested in a girl I've never met before. Very interested indeed.
That's nonsense.
It isn't.
I'm not going to argue with you about the matter. You're always trying to argue about things.
Yes, that's exactly what things were originally made for.
Goodness! If I thought that, I'd shoot myself. Oh my goodness! You don't think there's any chance of Gwendolyn becoming anything like her mother in about 135 years or so?
Women always become like their mothers. That's their tragedy. No man does, that's his.
Is that clever?
It's perfectly phrased and quite true, just as all things in modern life should be.
I'm sick to death of cleverness. You can't go anywhere anymore without running into clever people. The whole thing's become a public nuisance. I wish to goodness there was a few fools left.
Oh, there are.
I should very much like to meet them. What do they talk about?
Oh, the fools? Clever people, of course.
Oh, what fools.
Did you tell Gwendolyn the truth about your being Ernest in the town and Jack in the country?
Oh, Algernon. The truth is not the sort of thing that one tells to a sweet, charming, innocent girl like Gwendolyn. What ideas do you have about how to behave towards a woman?
Oh, the only way to behave towards a woman is to make love to her if she's pretty and someone else if she's plain.
That's nonsense.
What about that young girl whose guardian you are? Miss Cardew? What about your brother? What about the profligate Earnest?
Oh, Cecily will be all right. Before the end of the week, I will have killed my brother Ernest. Yes, and I'll kill him in Paris.
Why Paris?
There's trouble about a funeral and that sort of thing. Yes, I'll kill him in Paris, and I think apoplexy will do just fine. Don't you?
Yes, but that sort of thing is hereditary, my dear fellow. It's the sort of thing that runs in families.
Then I certainly shan't choose that. But what should I say?
Oh, say influenza.
No, I can't say influenza. That'd be perfectly improbable. Everyone dies from influenza.
Oh, well, say whatever you'd like then. Say a severe chill, that'll do.
But you're quite sure that a severe chill isn't anything hereditary or terrible of that kind?
Of course it isn't.
Well, then it's settled. A severe chill it is.
But I thought you said that Miss Cardew was a little too interested in your poor brother Ernest. Wouldn't she feel his loss a great deal?
No, Cecily's not one of those silly romantic girls. I'm happy to say that she goes on long walks, has a capital appetite, and pays absolutely no attention to her lessons.
I would very much like to meet Cecily.
And I will take very good care that you never do. And you're not to talk about her as Cecily. I don't like it.
Oh, I believe she's quite plain. Yes, I know exactly what she's like. She's one of those intellectual girls one finds all over the place. Girls who have large minds and large feet. I'm sure that she is more than usually plain, looks 39, and acts it.
She happens to be just 18 and excessively pretty.
Does Gwendolyn know you have an excessively pretty ward who's just only 18?
Algernon, life is a question of tact. One has to lead up to these things gradually. Cecily and Gwendolyn are certain to be great friends. I bet you anything you like that half an hour after they met, they'll be calling each other sister.
My dear fellow, women only do that after they call each other a lot of other names first. Now, if we want to get a good table at Willis's, we must go up and change. It is nearly 7.
It's always nearly 7.
Yes, but I'm hungry.
I never knew a time when you weren't hungry. However, I will go to eat with you at Willis's. You can call me on your way if you like.
What shall we do after dinner? Shall we go to the theater?
Oh, I loathe listening.
What about the club?
No, I hate talking.
Well, what about a trot round to the Empire at 10?
No, I don't want to look at things. That's so silly.
Then what shall we do?
Nothing.
Oh, it's so much hard work doing nothing. Although I'm not opposed to doing nothing when there's no definite object of any kind.
Miss Fairfax!
Gwendolyn, upon my word!
Algie, kindly turn your back. I've something very particular to say to Mr. Worthing, and as it is somewhat of a private matter, you will, of course, listen.
Gwendolyn, I really don't think I can allow this at all.
Algie, you always adopt a strictly immoral attitude towards life, and you are not quite old enough to do that. Ernest, my own love, we may never be married. From the expression of Mamma's face, I fear we never shall. Few parents nowadays pay any regard to what their children say to them. The old-fashioned respect for the young is fast dying out. Whatever influence I ever had over Mamma, I lost at the age of 3. Oh. But although she may prevent us from becoming man and wife, and although I may marry someone else, and marry often, nothing that she could possibly say can alter my eternal devotion to you.
Oh, dear Gwendolyn.
The story of your romantic origin, as related to me by Mamma, with unpleasing comments, has naturally stirred the deeper fibers of my nature. Your Christian name is an irresistible fascination to me. The simplicity of your character makes you exquisitely incomprehensible. Now, your town address at the Albany I have, so what is your address in the country?
The Manor House, Woolton, Hertfordshire.
Well, there is a good postal service, I suppose. It may be necessary to do something quite desperate, but that, of course, will require serious consideration. I shall communicate with you daily. Oh, my own one! How long do you remain in town?
Till Monday.
Oh, good. Algie, you may turn round now.
Thank you, I've turned around already.
You may also ring the bell.
Oh, Gwendolyn, may I see you to your carriage, darling?
Of course, my love. To see Gwendolyn out.
A glass of sherry, Lane.
Yes, sir.
Tomorrow, Lane, I'm going bunburying.
Yes, sir.
I probably won't be back till Monday. You can put up my smoking jacket, my bunburying suits, and my dress clothes.
Yes, sir.
Tomorrow is going to be a fine day, Lane.
Never is, sir.
Oh, Lane, you are a perfect pessimist.
I try my best to give satisfaction, sir.
Oh, that there is a beautiful, charming, clever, wonderful girl, and what on earth are you use that?
I'm just a little anxious about my poor friend Bunbury, that's all.
If you aren't careful, your friend Bunbury is going to get you into some serious scrapes someday.
Oh, I love scrapes. They're the only thing that aren't serious.
It's nonsense, Algernon. You never talk anything but nonsense.
Nobody ever does.
Cecily! Surely such a utilitarian occupation as the watering of flowers is rather Moulton's duty than yours, especially at a moment's notice when intellectual pleasures await you. Your German grammar is on the table. Pray open it at page 15. We will repeat yesterday's lesson.
Oh, I wish you would give Moulton the German lesson instead of me. Moulton! Miss Cecily?
Oh, wouldn't you like to know German, Moulton? German is the language talked by people who live in Germany.
I don't prefer to speak in foreign tongues, miss. No offense to you, madam.
Cecily, this will never do. Pray, open your Schiller at once.
But I don't like German. It isn't at all a becoming language. I know perfectly well that I am quite plain after my German lesson.
Child, you know how anxious your guardian is that you should improve yourself in every way. He laid particular stress on your German as he was leaving for town yesterday. Indeed, he always lays stress on your German when he's leaving for town.
Dear Uncle Jack is so very serious. Sometimes he is so serious that I think he cannot be quite well.
Your guardian enjoys the best of health, and his gravity of demeanour is especially be commended in one so comparatively young as he is. I know no one knows a higher sense of duty and responsibility.
I suppose that is why he often looks a little bit bored when we three are together.
Cecily, I'm surprised at you. Mr. Worthing has mental troubles in his life. Idle merriment and triviality will be out of place in this conversation. You must remember his constant anxiety about that unfortunate young man, his brother.
Oh, I wish Uncle Jack would allow that unfortunate young man, his brother, to come down here sometimes. We might have a good influence over him, Miss Prism. You certainly would. You know German and theology and things of that kind influence a man very much.
I do not think that even I could produce any effect on a man that, according to his own brother's admission, is irretrievably weak and vacillating. Indeed, I'm not sure I would desire to reclaim him. I'm not a fan of this whole modern mania of turning bad people into good people at a moment's notice. As a man sows, so let him reap.
But men don't sow, Miss Prism. And if they did, I don't see why they should be punished for it. There's a great deal too much punishment in the world. German is a punishment, certainly. And there is far too much German. You told me yourself yesterday that Germany was overpopulated.
There is no reason why you should be writing in your diary instead of translating William Tell. You must put away your diary, Cecily. I really don't see why you should keep a diary at all.
I keep a diary in order to enter all the wonderful secrets of my life. If I didn't write them down, I should probably forget all about them.
Memory, my dear Cecily, is the diary that we all carry about with us.
Yes, but memory usually chronicles the things that have never happened and couldn't possibly have happened. I believe that memory is responsible for nearly all the 3-volume novels that Mute sends us.
Do not speak slightingly of the 3-volume novel, Cecily. I wrote one myself in earlier days.
Did you really, Miss Prism? How wonderfully clever you are. I hope it did not end happily. I don't like novels that end happily. They depress me so much.
The good end happily, the bad unhappily. That is what fiction means.
Yes, I suppose so, but it seems very unfair. Was your novel ever published?
Alas, no. The manuscript, unfortunately, was abandoned. I use the word in the sense of lost or mislaid. To your work, child. These speculations are profitless.
Oh, but I see Dr. Chasuble coming up through the garden.
Dr. Chasuble, this is indeed a pleasure.
This morning, Miss Prism, you are, I trust, well.
Miss Prism has actually been complaining of a slight headache. I think it would do her so much good to have a short stroll with you in the park, Dr. Chasuble.
Cecily, I've not mentioned anything about a headache.
No, dear Miss Prism, I know that, but I felt instinctively that you had a headache. Indeed, I was thinking about that and not about my German lesson when the rector came in.
I hope, Cecily, you are not inattentive.
Oh, I'm afraid I am.
That is strange. Were I fortunate enough to be Miss Prism's pupil, I would hang upon her lips. I spoke metaphorically. My metaphor was drawn from bees. I suppose Mr. Worthing has not yet returned from town yet?
We do not expect Mr. Worthing until Monday afternoon.
Ah, yes. He usually likes to spend his Sundays in London. He's not one of those whose sole aim is enjoyment, as by all accounts that unfortunate young man, his brother, seems to be. But I must not disturb Egeria and her pupil any longer.
Egeria? My name is Letizia, Doctor.
Ah, classical allusion drawn from the pagan authors. I shall see you both, no doubt, at evensong?
I think, dear Doctor, I will have a stroll with you. I find I have a slight headache after all, and a walk might do it good.
With pleasure, Miss Prism, with pleasure. We might go as far as the schools and back.
That sounds delightful. Cecily, you'll read your political economy in my absence. The chapter on the fall of the rupee, you may admit, it is somewhat too sensational for a young girl. Even these metallic problems have their melodramatic side.
Oh, reading political economy, Cecily. It is wonderful how girls are educated nowadays. I suppose you know all about relations between capital and labor?
Oh, I'm afraid I'm not learned at all. All I know is the relations between capital and idleness. And that is merely from observation, so I don't suppose it is true.
Cecily, that sounds like socialism. And I suppose you know where socialism leads to.
Oh, yes, Miss Prism, that leads to rational dress. And I suppose that when a woman is dressed rationally, she is treated rationally. She certainly deserves to be.
A willful lamb. The child.
Sad trouble sometimes.
I envy you such tribulation.
Hard political economy, hard geography, horrid German.
Mr. Earnest Worthing has just driven over from the station. He's brought his luggage with him.
Mr. Ernest Worthing before the Albany W. Uncle Jack's brother. Did you tell him Mr. Worthing was in town?
Yes, miss. He seemed very much disappointed. I mentioned, though, that you and Miss Prism were in the garden. He's anxious to speak to you privately for a moment.
Oh, I don't think Miss Prism would like my being alone with him. So I'd better send for him at once before she comes back. Ask Mr. Ernest Worthing to come here. And I suppose we'd better talk to the housekeeper about a room for him.
Oh, I already sent his luggage up to the blue room, miss, next to Mr. Worthing's own room.
Oh, this is all right. I've been a really wicked person before. I feel rather frightened. I'm so afraid he'll look just like everyone else. Oh, he does.
You must be my little cousin Cecily, I'm sure.
You are under some strange mistake. I'm not little. In fact, I believe I'm more than usually tall for my age.
Oh.
But I am your cousin Cecily. You, I see from your card, are Uncle Jack's brother, my cousin Ernest. My wicked cousin Ernest.
Oh, I am not really wicked, cousin Cecily. You mustn't think I'm wicked.
Well, if you are not, then you certainly have been deceiving us all in a very inexcusable manner. You made Uncle Jack believe that you are very bad. I hope you have not been leading a double life, pretending to be good and being really wicked the whole time. That would be hypocrisy.
No, I have been very reckless.
Oh, I am glad to hear it.
In fact, now that you mention the subject, I have been very bad in my own small way.
Oh, I don't think you should be quite so proud of that. I'm sure it must have been very pleasant.
It is much pleasanter being here with you.
Well, I can't understand how you are here at all. Uncle Jack told me yesterday at the Albany that he would see you for the last time at 6 o'clock. He lets me read all the telegrams he sends you. I know some of them by heart.
Well, the fact is that I had not received a telegram till it was too late. Then I missed him at the club, and the hall porter thought he'd come down here. So, of course, I followed, thinking that he wanted to see me.
Well, he won't be back till Monday afternoon.
That is a great disappointment. I have a business appointment in London that I'm anxious to miss.
But couldn't you miss it anywhere but in London?
The appointment is in London.
Well, I understand, of course, how important it is to not keep a business engagement if one wants to retain any sense of the beauty of life. Still, I think you'd better wait till Uncle Jack comes back. I know he wants to speak to you about your emigrating.
About my what?
You're emigrating. He has gone up to buy your outfit.
I would not let Jack buy my outfit. He has no taste in neckties at all.
Well, I don't think you'll require neckties. Uncle Jack is sending you to Australia.
Australia? I'd sooner die.
Well, he said at dinner on Wednesday night that you'd have to choose between this world, the next world, and Australia.
The accounts that I've received of Australia and the next world are not particularly encouraging. No, Cousin Cecily, this world is good enough for me.
Yes, but are you good enough for it?
I'm afraid I'm not that. That is why I've come here. That I thought you might reform me, that you might make it your mission.
How dare you suggest that I have a mission?
Excuse me, I thought that all women had a mission of some kind nowadays.
Every female has, no woman. Besides, I haven't the time to reform you this afternoon.
Well, would you mind my reforming myself this afternoon?
It seems rather quixotic of you, but I think you should try.
I'm feeling better already.
You are looking a little worse.
Well, I'm hungry.
Oh, how thoughtless of me. I should have remembered that when one is going to lead an entirely new life, one requires regular and wholesome meals. Miss Prism and I lunched off some roast mutton at 2.
Oh, I'm afraid that'd be too rich for me.
Oh, well, Uncle Jack, whose health has been sadly undermined by the late hours you keep in town, has been ordered by his London doctor to have pâté de foie gras sandwiches and a bottle of 1889 champagne at 12. I don't know if such invalid fare would suit you.
Oh, I will be quite content with an 89 champagne.
Oh, well, I am glad to hear you have such simple tastes.
Might I have a buttonhole first? I never have any appetite unless I have a buttonhole first.
A Marchagnac?
No, I'd sooner a pink rose.
Why?
Because you are like a pink rose, Cousin Cecily.
I don't think it could be right for you to talk to me like that. Miss Prism never says such things to me.
Well, then Miss Prism is a short-sighted old lady. You are the prettiest girl I ever saw.
Miss Prism says that all good looks are a snare.
They are a snare that any sensible man would like to be caught in.
Oh, I don't think I should like to catch a sensible man. I wouldn't know what to talk to him about.
Oh, I have a couple ideas.
You are too much alone, dear Dr. Chasuble. You should get married. A misanthrope I can understand. A womanthrope? Never.
Believe me, I do not deserve so neologistic a phrase. The precept as well as the practice of the primitive church was strictly against matrimony.
That is obviously the reason why the primitive church has not lasted up to the present day. And you do not seem to realize, dear doctor, that by persistently remaining single, a man converts himself into a permanent public temptation. Men should be more careful. This very celibacy leads weaker vessels astray.
But is a man not equally attractive when married?
No man is ever attractive except to his wife.
And often I've been told not even to her.
That depends on the intellectual sympathies of the woman. Maturity can always be depended on. Ripeness can be trusted. Young women are green. I spoke horticulturally. My metaphor was drawn from fruit. But where's Cecily?
Perhaps she has followed us to the schools.
Mr. Worthing!
Mr. Worthing?
Dr. Chasuble, I hope that you are well.
Dear Mr. Worthing, I trust this garb of woe does not betoken some terrible calamity.
Oh, my brother.
More shameful depths and extravagance.
Still leading his life of pleasure.
Dead.
Your brother Ernest dead.
Yes, quite dead.
What a lesson for him. I will trust he will profit by it.
Death is the inheritance of us all, Miss Prism. Nor shall we look on it as a special judgment, but rather as a general providence. Life were incomplete without it. Dear Mr. Worthing, I offer you my sincere condolence. At least you have the consolation of knowing that you are always the most generous and forgiving of brothers.
Oh, poor Ernest. He had his faults, but this is a sad, sad blow.
Oh, very sad indeed. Were you with him at the end?
No, actually, he died in Paris. I received a telegram from the manager of the Grand Hotel last night.
Was the cause of death mentioned?
Yes, a severe chill, it seems.
As a man sows, so let him reap.
Charity, dear Miss Prism, charity. None of us are perfect. I myself am peculiarly susceptible to draughts. Will the interment take place here?
No. He seems to have expressed a desire to be buried in Paris.
In Paris? Oh, I fear that hardly points to any very serious state of mind at the last. You will no doubt wish me to make some slight allusion to this tragic affliction next Sunday. My sermon on the meaning of the manna in the wilderness can be adapted to any occasion, joyful, or in the present case, distressing. I have preached it at harvest celebrations, christenings, confirmations, on days of humiliation and feastal days. The last time I delivered it was in the cathedral, as a charity sermon on behalf of the Society for the Prevention of Discontent among the Upper Orders. The bishop who was present was much struck by some of the analogies I drew.
Yes, and you mentioned christenings, I believe, Dr. Chasuble. I suppose you know how to christen all right? I mean, you are continually christening. Yes.
It is, I regret to say, the rector's most constant duty in the parish. I've often spoken to the poor classes on the subject, but they do not seem to know what thrift is.
The church rejects no babe, Miss Prism. In every child, there's the making of a saint. But in what particular infant are you interested, Mr. Worthing? Your brother was, I believe, unmarried, was he not?
Oh, yes. But this baptism is not for any child. I'm very fond of children. No, the fact is that I would like to be christened myself this afternoon if you've got nothing else better to do.
But surely, Mr. Worthing, you have been christened already.
Well, I don't remember anything about it.
Have you any grave doubts on the subject?
I have the gravest of doubts. There are circumstances attached to my childhood and early life that lead me to believe I was a great deal neglected. I was certainly not properly looked after. But of course, I don't know if the thing would bother you in any way, or if you think I'm too old now.
I am by no means a bigoted Paedo-Baptist. The sprinkling and indeed immersion of adults has always been a common practice of the primitive church.
Immersion? You mean I'm going to...
Oh, you need have no apprehensions. The sprinkling is all that is necessary, indeed, I think, advisable. Our weather is so changeable. At what hour will you wish the ceremony performed?
I might trot round 5 o'clock.
Oh, perfectly. In fact, I have 2 similar ceremonies to perform at that time. A case of twins that occurred in one of the outlying cottages of our own estate. Oh, poor Jenkins the Carter, a most hard-working man.
I don't see much fun in being christened with other babies. Do you think I could be christened around 5:30?
Oh, admirably. now, dear Mr. Worthing, I will not intrude any longer into the house of sorrow. I'd merely beg you not to be too much bowed down by grief. What seem to us bitter trials are often blessings in disguise.
This seems to me a blessing of extremely obvious kind.
Uncle Jack! Oh, I am so pleased to see you back. But what horrid clothes you've got on. Do go and change them.
Cecily!
Oh, my child, my child!
Oh, Uncle Jack, do you look happy? You look as if you had a toothache, and I've got such a surprise for you. Who do you think is in the dining room? Your brother!
Who?
Your brother Ernest. He arrived half an hour ago.
But, Cecily, I don't have a brother.
Oh, don't say that, Uncle Jack. No matter how badly he may have behaved to you in the past, he is still your brother. You couldn't be so heartless as to disown him. I'll tell him to come out, and you will shake hands with him, won't you, Uncle Jack?
Oh, these are joyful tidings. That telegram from Paris seems to have been a somewhat heartless jest by one who wished to play upon your feelings.
His sudden return seems to me particularly distressing.
My brother, in the dining room. I don't know what on earth this means. I think it's perfectly absurd.
Brother John, I have come down from the town to tell you how terribly sorry I am for the trouble I may have caused you, and I intend to lead a better life in the future.
Oh, there is good in that young man. He seems sincerely repentant.
The son conversion does not please me. They belong to dissent. I savour of the laxity of the nonconformist.
Uncle Jack, are you not going to deny your own brother's hand?
Nothing will induce me to shake his hand. And he knows perfectly well why.
Young man, you have had a very narrow escape of your life. I hope this will be a warning to you. We were mourning your demise when you entered.
Yes. Jack's got himself a new suit of clothes. They don't fit him properly. His necktie's wrong.
Oh, Uncle Jack, do be nice. There is some good in everyone. Ernest has just been telling me about his poor invalid friend, Mr. Bunbury, whom he goes to visit so often. And surely there must be some good in one who is so kind to an invalid and leaves the pleasures of London to sit by a bed of pain.
Well, he's talked about Bunbury, has he?
Yes, he has told me all about poor Mr. Bunbury and his terrible state of health.
Bunbury! Well, I won't have him talking about Bunbury to you or to anyone else in this house. It's enough to drive one perfectly frantic.
Mr. Worthing, your brother has been unexpectedly restored to you by the mysterious dispensations of Providence, who seems to desire your reconciliation. And it is good for brothers to dwell together in enmity.
I admit that the faults are all on my side. However, though, I think that my brother John's attitude towards me seems to be particularly painful. I expected a warmer welcome, especially with this being my first time here.
Oh, Uncle Jack, if you don't shake hands with Ernest, I will never forgive you.
Never forgive me?
Never, never, never.
Never.
Well, fine. I suppose I must then. You young scoundrel. You've got no right to Bunbury here. You have to leave at once.
It is pleasant, is it not, to see so perfect a reconciliation?
We must not be premature in our judgments.
I've put Mr. Ernest's things in the room next to yours, sir. I suppose it's all right.
What?
Mr. Ernest's luggage, sir. I have unpacked it and put in the room next to your own.
His luggage?
Yes, sir. 3 portmanteaus, a dressing case, 2 hat boxes, and a large luncheon basket.
Yes, I'm afraid I can stay no longer than a week this time.
I beg your pardon, sir. There's an elderly gentleman who wishes to see you. He's just driven over from a cab in the station.
For me?
Yes, sir.
Parker and Grimsby solicitors. I don't know anything about them. Who are they?
Parker and Grimsby? I wonder who they could be. Perhaps they've come about some business for your friend Bunbury. Maybe Bunbury wants to make his will known and wishes you to be his executor. Have him sent for.
Very good, sir.
Now, dear Ernest, I certainly hope I can depend upon the statement you made to me last week when I settled all your bills for you. I certainly hope you don't have any outstanding accounts of any kind.
Oh, no, of course not. Thanks to your wonderful generosity, my dear fellow, I don't owe a penny. Except maybe a few neckties, of course.
I'm perfectly glad to hear it.
Mr. Grimsby.
Mr. Ernest Worthing.
This is Mr. Ernest Worthing.
Mr. Ernest Worthing.
Yes?
Of B4 the Algernon.
Yes, that is my address.
I'm very sorry, sir, but we have a right of attachment here for 20 days against you at the suite of the Savoy Hotel, Co-Limited, for £762, 14 shillings and 2 pence.
Against me?
Yes, sir.
Oh, what perfect nonsense. I never dine at the Savoy at my own expense. I always dine at Willis's. It's far more expensive. I don't owe a penny to the Savoy.
The right is marked as having been served to you personally at the Albany on May the 27th. Judgment was given in default against you on the 5th of June. Since then, we have written to you no less than 15 times without receiving any reply. In the interest of our clients, we had no other option but to obtain an order for your committal.
Committal? What on earth do you mean by committal? I am staying a week here. I'm staying with my brother. If you think for a moment that I'm going back to town with you when I've just arrived, you are extremely mistaken.
I'm merely a solicitor myself. I do not employ personal violence of any kind. Now, the officer of the court who is waiting in the fly outside is in the case of a medical emergency. Yes. See right here.
Yes.
He's waiting in the fly outside. He has considerable experience in matters, which can always. He's considerable experience in these matters.
Indeed.
And that is why we always employ him.
Oh, but you think I'm going to pay for it out of pocket? How dare you? No gentleman ever has any sort of money nowadays.
Well, it is usually my experience that it is family relations to pay.
Oh, Jack! You really must settle this bill.
Kindly allow me to see the particular items, Mr. Grimsby. £762, 14 shillings and 2 pence since last October. I must say I haven't seen such reckless extravagance in my whole life.
£762 for eating. There can be little good in any young man who eats so much and so often.
We are far away from Wordsworth's plain living and high thinking.
Now, Dr. Chasuble, you don't suppose that I'm in any way called upon to pay this monstrous account for my brother?
I am bound to say I do not think so. It would be encouraging his profligacy.
As a man sows, so let him reap. To propose incarceration might be most salutary. It is to be regretted that it's only for 20 days.
I am quite of your opinion.
How dare you, my dear fellow? You know that the bill is actually yours.
Mine?
Yes, you know it.
Mr. Worthing, if this is a jest, it is out of place.
It is gross effrontery. Just what I expected from him.
And it is ingratitude. I didn't expect that.
Yes, don't listen to him. This is the way that he always goes about. Now, I don't suppose that you mean to say that you are not Earnest of the B4 Albany? I don't suppose. Why don't you just deny being my brother at all? Why don't you?
Oh, that is a perfectly absurd thing. Of course I am your brother. that is why you should pay this bill for me.
I will tell you quite candidly that I don't have any intention of doing anything of the kind. Dr. Chasuble, the worthy rector of this parish, and Miss Prism, in whose sound and wonderful judgment I place great reliance, are both of the opinion that some incarceration would do you some great good, and I think so too.
Ahem. I'm sorry to disturb this pleasant family meeting, but time presses. We have to be at the Holloway no later than 4 o'clock. Otherwise, it is difficult to obtain admission. The rules are very strict.
Holloway?
It is at Holloway that detentions of this character take place, always.
Surely I'm not going to be imprisoned in the suburbs for having dined in the West End.
Bill is for suppers, not for dinners.
Oh, I don't care. All I tell you is that I'm not going to be imprisoned in the suburbs.
The surroundings, I admit, are middle class, but the jail itself is fashionable and well-aired. And there are ample opportunities to take exercise at certain stated hours of the day. In the case of a medical certificate, which can always be easily obtained, the hours can be extended.
Exercise? Oh, no gentleman ever takes any exercise. You don't seem to know what a gentleman is.
I've met so many of them, sir. I'm afraid I don't. I've met the most curious varieties of them. The result of cultivation, no doubt. Now, will you kindly come now, sir, if it would not be too inconvenient for you?
Oh, please, Jack.
Pray be firm, Mr. Worthing.
This is an occasion on which any weakness would be out of place. It would be a form of self-deception.
I don't know what weakness or any kind of deception is.
Oh, Uncle Jack, I think you've got a little money of mine, haven't you? Let me pay this bill. I shouldn't like your own brother to be in prison.
Cecily. I couldn't possibly let you pay this bill for him. That'd be absurd.
Well, then you will, won't you, Uncle Jack? I don't think you would want your own brother to be shut up. Of course, I am disappointed in him.
You're not going to speak to him ever again, will you, Cecily?
Certainly not. Unless, of course, he speaks to me first, and then it would be very rude not to answer.
Yes, I'll take very good care that he doesn't speak to you ever again. I'll take great care that he doesn't speak to anyone in this house ever again. This man should be cut. Mr. Grimsby, remind me, what are the particular items?
£762, 14 shillings and 2 pence. The cab will be 5 or 9 pence extra, hired for the convenience of the client.
Yes, and all right. Be able to park on Grimsby, I suppose.
Yes, sir. Kindly don't cross a check. Thank you.
I must say, I think such generosity quite foolish.
The heart has its wisdom as well as the head, Miss Prism.
Good day.
Good day.
Good day. I hope I shall have the pleasure of meeting you again.
Well, I certainly hope not. What ideas you have of the sort of society a gentleman wants to be mixed in. No gentleman ever wants to know a solicitor who would imprison one in the suburbs.
Quite so, quite so.
Oh, and by the way, Grimsby, you are not to take that cab back to the station. That is my cab. It was taken for my convenience. So, solicitors need to walk more nowadays. Yes, I don't know a single solicitor who takes sufficient exercise. They make it a rule to stay in their bloody offices all day, neglecting their business.
You can take the cab, Mr. Grimsby.
But that is mine.
Well, the day is getting very sultry, isn't it, Dr. Chasuble?
Oh, there's thunder in the air.
The atmosphere requires to be cleared.
Have you read the Times this morning, Mr. Worthing? There seems to be an interesting article on the growth of religious feeling among the laity.
No, I was saving it for dinner.
Luncheon is on the table, sir.
Oh, good news. I am so hungry.
But you have lunched already.
Lunched already?
Yes, Uncle Jack. He had some of that pâté de foie gras sandwiches in your 89 champagne.
My 89 champagne?
Yes, I thought you would like him to have the same thing as yourself.
Well, if he's lunched already, he can't be expected to lunch twice. That would be absurd.
To partake of 2 luncheons in one day would not be liberty, it would be license.
Even the pagan authors condemned excess in eating. Aristotle wrote of it with severity. He used the same terms about it as he does about usury.
Dr. Chasuble, would you please escort the ladies into luncheon?
With pleasure.
Lunch.
It has not been a very good day of bun-burying for you, has it? I don't think it's a very good day of bun-burying for myself.
Bunburying has its ups and downs, just as everything does. I'd be all right if you let me have some lunch. Besides, the main thing is that I've seen Cecily, and she is darling.
You are not to talk about her as Cecily. I don't like it.
Well, I don't like your clothes. Do go up and change. I have never seen a man look so despicable. Seriously, why be in deep mourning for a man who's actually staying a whole week with you in your home as your guest?
You are not going to be staying with me as a guest for a week or as anything else. You've got to take the 4-5 train back home.
Well, I can't do that while you're in mourning. It'd be very unfriendly. If I were in mourning, you should stay with me. It would be very unkind if you didn't.
Will you go if I change my clothes?
Fine, if you don't take so long. I've never seen a man take so long to dress for such little result.
Well, it's better than being overdressed all the time as you always are.
If I am a little overdressed, I make up for it by being immensely overeducated.
Your vanity's ridiculous and your presence in my garden is absolutely absurd and you're going to have to take the 4-5 train back home and I hope you have a safe, lovely trip. This has not been a good day of bun-burying for you. This has not been a very good day of bun-burying for you.
I believe it has been very good. I'm in love with Cecily, and she is everything. Oh, but one can't bunbury on an empty stomach. I think I'll go in lunch with them. Oh.
I promised Uncle Jack that I wouldn't speak to you unless you asked me a question of some kind. I can't understand why you don't ask me a question of some kind. I'm afraid you're not as intellectual as I thought you were at first.
Oh, Cecily. Mayn't I come into lunch?
I wonder you can look me in the face after your conduct.
Well, I love looking you in your face.
But why did you try and put your horrid bill on Uncle Jack? I think that was very inexcusable of you.
The fact is that I have the most wretched memory, and I quite forgot that I owed this boy £762, 14 shillings and 2 pence.
Oh, well, I'm glad to hear that you have a bad memory. Good memories are not the quality that women admire much in men.
Cecily, I'm dreadfully hungry.
I can't understand your being so hungry, considering all you have had to eat since last October.
Those suppers were for Bunbury. Yes, late-night suppers were the only thing his doctors would allow him to eat.
Well, I don't wonder then that Mr. Bunbury is always so ill if he eats suppers for 6 or 8 people every night of the week.
That is what I'm always telling him, but he always seems to think that his doctors know best. He's perfectly silly about those doctors.
Well, of course I don't want you to starve, so I've told the butler to send you out some lunch.
Cecily, what a perfect angel you are. May I not see you again before I'm to go?
Well, Miss Prism and I will be in the house after lunch. I always have my afternoon lessons in the drawing room.
Can't you make up something to get her out of the way?
Do you mean invent a falsehood?
No, of course not. It's just something that's not true but should be.
Well, I'm afraid I couldn't possibly. I shouldn't know how. People never think of cultivating a young girl's imagination nowadays, which is the great defect of modern education. Of course, if you were to mention that dear Dr. Chasuble was waiting somewhere to see Miss Prism, she would certainly go to meet him. She has very few opportunities of keeping him waiting, and she never likes to do so.
Oh, what a capital suggestion!
I didn't suggest anything, Cousin Ernest. I merely pointed out that if you adopted a certain line of conduct, a certain result would follow.
I beg your pardon, Cousin Cecily. So, I shall see you at 2:45. I have something very serious to tell you.
Serious?
Yes. Very serious.
In that case, I think we'd better meet outdoors. I don't like talking seriously indoors. It looks so artificial.
Well, then where shall we meet?
I said the dog cart's here! You've got to go! Cecily, shouldn't you be with Miss Prism and Dr. Chasuble in luncheon?
Yes, Uncle Jack. Goodbye, Cousin Ernest. I'm afraid that I shan't see you again, as I shall be doing my lessons with Miss Prism at 3:30 here in the garden.
Thank you, Cousin Cecily. You have been very kind to me.
All right, now look here, Algernon. You've got to leave, and the sooner you go, the better. Bunbury is very ill, and your place is by his side.
I can't go quite yet, my dear fellow. I haven't had my second lunch. And you'll be happy to hear that Bunbury is very much better.
Well, you're going to have to leave at 3:50 at any case. I've ordered for your things to be packed and for the dog cart to come around for you.
Cecily, you are again making entries in your diary. I think I've had occasion more than once to speak to you about that morbid habit of yours.
I am merely, as I always do, taking you for my example, Miss Prism.
When one has thoroughly mastered the principles of bimetallism, one has the right to lead an introspective life. Hardly before. I must beg you to return to your political economy.
Yes, in one moment, dear Miss Prism. The fact is I have only chronicled the events of today up until 2:15, and it was not until 2:30 that the fearful catastrophe occurred.
Pardon me, dear Cecily, it was exactly at 2:45 that Dr. Chasuble mentioned the very painful views held by the primitive church on marriage.
Well, I was not referring to Dr. Chasuble at all. I was alluding to the tragic exposure of poor Mr. Ernest Worthing.
I highly disapprove of Mr. Ernest Worthing. He's a thoroughly bad young man.
I fear he must be. It is the only reason I can find very strange attractiveness.
Child, let me entreat of you not to be led away by whatever superficial qualities this young man may possess.
Believe me, dear Miss Prism, it is only the superficial qualities that last. Man's deeper nature is soon found out.
Child, I do not know where he gets such ideas. They are certainly not to be found in any of the improving books that I have procured for you.
Are there ever any ideas in improving books? I fear not. I get my ideas in the garden.
Then you should certainly be not so much in the open air. The fact is, you've fallen lately, Cecily, into a bad habit of thinking for yourself. You must give it up. It is not quite womanly. Men don't like it.
Oh!
Mr. Worthing! I thought I might say I was in the hopes you'd already returned to town.
My departure will not be long. Oh, I have come to bid Cousin Cecily goodbye. I've been informed that the dog cart has been ordered for me. I'm to go back into the cold world.
I hardly know, Mr. Worthing, what you can mean by using such an expression. The day, even for the month of July, is unusually warm.
Profligacy is apt to dull the senses.
No doubt about that. I am far from defending the weather, Miss Prism. But I believe it is my duty to inform you that Dr. Chasuble is expecting you in the vestry.
In the vestry? That sounds serious. It can hardly be for any trivial purpose that the rector selects for an interview as place of such peculiarly solemn associations. I do not think it would be right to keep him waiting, Cecily.
Oh, it would be very, very wrong. The vestry is, I am told, excessively damp.
True, I had not thought of that. And the rector is sadly rheumatic. Mr. Worthing, we shall probably not meet again. You will allow me, I trust, to express a sincere hope that you will now turn over a new leaf in life.
Oh, Miss Prism, I have already begun an entirely new volume.
I'm delighted to hear it. And do not forget, there's always hope, even for the most depraved. Don't be idle, Cecily.
Oh, I have no intention of being idle, Miss Prism. I realize only too strongly that I have a great deal of serious work before me.
It's quite as it should be, dear.
Oh, Mrs. Cardew, this parting is very painful.
It is always painful to part from people whom one has known for only a very brief space of time. The absence of old friends one can endure with equanimity, but even a momentary separation from anyone to whom one has just been introduced is almost unbearable.
Thank you.
Excuse me. The dog cart is waiting, sir.
It can wait, Merriman, for 5 minutes.
Yes, miss.
Cecily, I hope I shall not offend you when I speak openly and frankly when I say you seem to me to be the visible personification of absolute perfection.
I think your frankness does you great credit, Ernest. If you allow me, I will copy your remarks into my diary.
Do you really keep a diary? I'd give anything to look at it. May I?
No. You see, it is simply a very young girl's record of her own thoughts and impressions, and consequently meant for publication. When it appears in volume form, I do hope you will order a copy. But pray, Ernest, don't stop. I delight in taking down from dictation. You can go on. I have reached absolute perfection. I'm quite ready for more. Don't cough. When one is dictating, one should speak fluently and not cough. Besides, I don't know how to spell a cough.
Miss Cardew, ever since 12:30 this afternoon, when I first looked upon your wonderful and incomparable beauty, I have not merely been your abject slave and servant, but soaring upon the pinions of a possibly monstrous ambition, I have dared to love you wildly, passionately, devotedly, hopelessly.
Oh, please say all that over again. You speak far too fast and far too indistinctly. Can they say it all over again?
Miss Cardew, ever since 12:30 this afternoon, when I first looked upon your wonderful and incomparable beauty,
Yes, I got that all right.
I have not merely been your abject slave and servant, but soaring upon the pinions of a possibly monstrous ambition, I have dared to love you wildly, passionately, devotedly, blessedly.
I have not taken down hopelessly. It does not seem to make much sense, does it?
Oh, Cecily!
Is that the beginning of a new paragraph, or should it be followed by a note of admiration?
It is the beginning of an entirely new existence for me, and shall be followed by such notes of admiration, and be a subtle and distinct symphony of praise, love, and adoration combined.
I don't think that makes any sense at all. The fact is that men should never try to dictate to women. They never know how to do it, and when they do it, they always say something particularly foolish.
I don't care what I say is foolish or not. All I know is that I love you, Cecily. I love you, I want you, and I can't live without you. You will marry me, won't you? You will be my wife.
Oh, you made me make a plot! And yours is the only real proposal I've ever had in all my life. I should like to have entered it neatly.
What?
The dark guy is ready, so you gotta go.
Tell it to come around next week at the same hour.
Yes,
Uncle Jack would be very much annoyed if he knew you were staying on till next week at the same hour.
I don't care about Uncle Jack. I don't care about anyone in the whole world except you, Cecily. I love you. You will marry me, won't you?
You silly boy, of course. Why, we have been engaged for the last 3 months.
For the last 3 months?
Yes, 3 months all but a few days. It will be exactly 3 months on Thursday.
I didn't know!
Very few people nowadays ever realize the position in which they are placed. The ages, as Miss Prism often says, a thoughtless one.
How did we become engaged?
Well, ever since Uncle Jack first confessed to us that he had a younger brother who was very wicked and bad, you, of course, have formed the chief topic of conversation between myself and Miss Prism. And, of course, any man who is much talked about is always very attractive. One feels there must be something in him after all. I dare say it was foolish of me, but I fell in love with you, Ernest.
Darling! But when was the engagement actually settled?
On the 14th of February last. Worn out by your entire ignorance of my existence, I determined to end the matter one way or the other, and after a long struggle with myself, I accepted you one evening here in the garden. The next day I bought this little ring in your name. You see, I always wear it, Ernest, even though it shows you are sadly extravagant. Still, I have long ago forgiven you for that. Here is where I keep all the presents you have given me from time to time, neatly numbered and labelled. Yes, look, this is the pearl necklace that you gave me on my birthday. And this is where I keep all of your letters.
Oh, my letters? My dear, I've never written you any letters.
Yeah, you need hardly remind me of that, Ernest. I remember it only too clearly. I grew tired of asking the postman every morning if he had a London letter for me. My health began to give way under the strain and anxiety. So I wrote her letters for you, and I had them posted to me in the village by my maid. I wrote always 3 times a week and sometimes oftener.
Oh, do let me read them, Cecily?
Oh, I couldn't possibly. You see, they would make you far too conceited. The 3 that you wrote me after I had broken off the engagement are so beautiful and so badly spelt that even now I can hardly read them without crying, Elizabeth.
Was the engagement ever broken off?
Of course it was. On 22nd of last March. You can see the entry if you like. You see, today I broke off my engagement with Ernest. I feel it is better to do so. The weather still continues charming.
What on earth had I done? What had I done, Cecily? I hadn't done anything. Cecily, I am very hurt to hear that you broke off the engagement, particularly when the weather was so charming.
Men seem to forget very easily. I should think you would have remembered the violent letter you wrote me after I danced with Lord Kelso at the county ball.
Oh, but I took it back, didn't I, Cecily?
Of course you did. Otherwise I wouldn't have forgiven you. Or accepted this little silver bangle with a turquoise and diamond heart that you sent me the next day.
Oh, did I get you this? Oh, it's very pretty, isn't it?
Yes, you have wonderfully good taste, Ernest. I have always said that of you. It is the excuse I have given for your leading such a bad life.
Oh, my own one. Then we have been engaged for 3 months.
Yes, oh, how the time has flown, hasn't it?
I don't think so. The days have been long and dreary without you.
You dear romantic boy. Oh, I hope your hair curls naturally, does it?
Yes, with a little help from others.
I'm so glad.
Oh. But Cecily, you are not to break off the engagement again, will you?
I don't think that I could break it off now that I have actually met you. Besides, of course, there's the question of your name.
Yes, of course.
You must not laugh at me, darling. But it has always been a girlish dream of mine to love somebody whose name was Earnest. There is something in the name that seems to inspire absolute confidence. I pity any poor married woman whose husband is not called Ernest.
Oh, my dear child, that's not to say that you couldn't love me if I had some other name.
Oh, but what name?
Oh, any name you'd like. Algernon, for instance.
I don't like the name of Algernon.
Oh, but my dear, sweet, loving little darling, Algernon's really not a bad name at all. I don't see why you should oppose to it. In fact, it's a rather aristocratic name. Half the chaps in bankruptcy court are called Algernon. Seriously, Cecily, if my name were Algie, couldn't you love me?
I might respect you, Ernest. I might admire your character, but I fear that I should not be able to give you my undivided attention.
Oh, right. Your rector here is, I suppose, thoroughly experienced in the rites, practices, and ceremonials of the church?
Yes, Dr. Chasuble is a most learned man. He has never written a single book, so you can imagine how much he knows.
Oh, I must see him on the most important christening. I mean the most important business.
Oh!
I shan't be gone more than half an hour.
But considering that we have been engaged for the last 3 months and I have only met you today for the first time, I think it is rather hard that you should leave me for so long a period as half an hour. Couldn't you make it 20 minutes?
I'll be right back.
Oh, what an impetuous boy he is. I like his hair so much. I must enter his proposal in my diary.
Miss Fairfax has just called to see Mr. Worthing on very important business, Miss Fairfax states.
Isn't Mr. Worthing in his library?
Mr. Worthing went over in the direction of the rectory some time ago.
Oh, well, tell the lady to come out here. Mr. Worthing is sure to be back soon. And you can bring tea.
Yes,
Miss Fairfax. One of the many good elderly women associated with Uncle Jack and some of his philanthropic work in London, I suppose. I don't like women who are associated in philanthropic work. I think it is quite forward of them.
Miss Fairfax.
Pray let me introduce myself to you. My name is Cecily Cardew.
Cecily Cardew. What a very sweet name. Something tells me that we are going to be great friends. I like you already more than I can say, and my first impressions of people are never wrong.
Oh, how nice of you to like me so much after we've known each other such a comparatively short time. Pray sit down.
I may call you Cecily, may I not?
With pleasure.
And you will always call me Gwendolen, won't you?
If you wish.
Then that is all quite settled, is it not?
I hope so.
Perhaps this might be a favourable opportunity for my mentioning who I am. My father is Lord Bracknell. You have never heard of Papa, I suppose?
I don't think so.
Well, outside of the family circle, Papa, I am glad to say, is entirely unknown. I think that is just as it should be. The home seems to me to be the proper sphere for the man, and certainly once a man begins neglecting his domestic duties, he becomes painfully effeminate, does he not? And I don't like that, because it makes men so very attractive. Cecily, Mamma, whose views on education are remarkably strict, has brought me up to be extremely short-sighted. So do you mind my looking at you through my glasses?
Oh, no, dear Gwendolen. I am very fond of being looked at.
You are here on a short visit, I suppose?
No, I live here.
Really?
Yes.
Your mother or some other female relative of advanced years resides here also?
Oh, no. I haven't got a mother. Nor, in fact, any relations.
Indeed.
Yeah, my guardian, with the esteemed, with the help of Miss Prism, is the arduous task of looking after me.
Your guardian?
Yes, I'm Mr. Worthing's ward.
Oh! It is strange. You never mentioned to me that he had a ward. How secretive of him. He grows more interesting hourly. I am not sure, however, that the news inspires me with feelings of unmixed delight. I am very fond of you, Cecily. I have liked you ever since I met you, but I do feel bound to point out that now that I know you are Mr. Worthing's ward, I cannot help expressing a wish you were, well, Just a little older than you seem to be, and not quite so very alluring in appearance. In fact, if I may speak candidly.
Oh, pray do. I think that whenever anyone has anything unpleasant to say, I think that they should be quite candid.
Yes. Well, to speak with perfect candor, Cecily, I wish that you were fully 42 and more than usually plain for your age. Ernest has a strong, upright nature. He is the very soul of truth, and honor disloyalty would be as impossible to him as deception. But even men of the most noble moral character possible are extremely susceptible to the influence of the physical charms of others. Modern, no less than ancient history, supplies us with many most painful examples of what I refer to. If it were not so, indeed, history would be quite unreadable.
I beg your pardon, Gwendolen. Did you say Ernest?
Yes, I did.
Oh, but it is not Mr. Ernest Worthing who is my guardian. It is his brother, his elder brother.
Oh, Ernest never mentioned to me that he had a brother either.
Oh, well, I am sorry to say that they have not been on very good terms for a long time.
Then that accounts for it. And now that I think about it, I have never heard any man mention his brother. The subject seems distasteful to most men. Oh, Cecily, you have lifted a load from my mind. I was growing almost anxious, and it would have been terrible if any cloud had come across a friendship like ours, would it not? Of course, you are quite certain that it is not Mr. Ernest Worthing who is your guardian.
Quite certain. In fact, I'm going to be his.
I beg your pardon.
Dearest Gwendolen, there is no reason I should make a secret of it to you. A little county newspaper sure to chronicle the fact next week. Mr. Ernest Worthing and I are engaged to be married.
My darling Cecily. Oh, I am afraid there must be some slight error. You see, Mr. Ernest Worthing is engaged to me. The announcement will appear on the Morning Post on Saturday at the latest.
My dearest Gwendolyn, I fear there must be some misunderstanding. Ernest proposed to me 10 minutes ago. You see?
Well, that is certainly very curious, for he asked me to be his wife yesterday afternoon at 5:30. If you would care to verify the incident, pray do so. I never travel without my diary, because one should always have something sensational to read in the train. I am so sorry if it is any disappointment to you, dear Cecily, but I am afraid that I have the prior claim.
It would distress me more than I could tell you, dearest Gwendolyn, if it caused you any mental or physical anguish. But I feel bound to point out that since Ernest proposed to you, he clearly has changed his mind.
If the poor boy has been entrapped into any foolish promise, I shall consider it my duty to rescue him at once and with a firm hand.
Whatever unfortunate entanglement my dear boy may have gotten himself into, I will never reproach him with it once we are married.
Do you allude to me, Miss Cardew, as an entanglement? You are presumptuous. On occasions of this kind, it becomes much more than a moral duty to speak one's mind. It becomes a pleasure.
Do you suggest, Miss Fairfax, that I entrapped Ernest into an engagement? How dare you! This is no time for wearing the shallow mask of manners. When I see a spade, I call it a spade.
Oh, well, I am glad to say that I have never seen a spade, and it is obvious to me that our social spheres have been widely different.
Shall I lay tea here as usual, miss?
Yes, as usual.
Are there many interesting walks in the vicinity, Miss Cardew?
Oh, yes, a great many, Miss Fairfax. From the top of one of the hills, quite close, one can see 5 counties.
5 counties? Well, I don't think I should like that, because I hate crowds.
Oh, I suppose that is why you live in town.
What a charming little garden this is of yours, Miss Cardew. Oh, glad you like it, Miss Fairfax. Yes, I had no idea that there was anything even remotely approaching good taste in the country districts. It is quite a surprise to me.
Well, I'm afraid you judge of the country from what one sees in town. I'm afraid most London houses are quite vulgar.
Well, I suppose they do dazzle the rural mind. Personally, I cannot understand how anybody even manages to exist in the country. If anybody who is anybody does. The country always bores me to death.
Oh, this is what the newspapers are calling agricultural depression, is it not? I believe that the aristocracy are suffering very much from it at present. It is almost an epidemic amongst them, I have been told. May I offer you some tea, Miss Fairfax?
Thank you. Detestable girl. But I require tea.
Sugar?
No, thank you. Sugar is not fashionable anymore.
Cake or bread and butter?
Bread and butter, please. Cake is rarely seen at the best houses nowadays.
Hand that to Miss Fairfax.
You have filled my tea with lumps of sugar. And though I asked most distinctly for bread and butter, you have given me cake! I am known for the extraordinary sweetness of my nature and the gentleness of my disposition. But I warn you, Miss Cardew, you may go to...
To save my poor, sweet, innocent, trusting boy from the machinations of any other girl, there are no lengths to which I would not go.
From the moment I saw you, I distrusted you. I felt that you are false and deceitful, and I am never deceived in such matters because my first impressions of people are invariably right.
Well, it seems to me, Miss Fairfax, that I am trespassing on your valuable time. No doubt you have many other calls of a similar character to make in the neighborhood.
Ernest! A moment, Ernest! May I ask if you are engaged to be married to this young lady?
Oh, to dear little Cecily? Of course not. What could have put such an idea in your pretty little head?
Thank you. You may.
I knew there must be some misunderstanding, Miss Fairfax. The gentleman whose arm is at present round your waist is my guardian, Mr. John Worthing.
I beg your pardon?
This is Uncle Jack.
Jack.
Oh! Here is Ernest. A moment, Ernest. May I ask, are you engaged to be married to this young lady?
What young lady? Good heavens! Gwendolyn!
Yes, to good heavens, Gwendolyn. I mean, to Gwendolyn.
Of course not. What could have put such an idea in your pretty little head?
Oh, thank you. You may.
I knew there was some misunderstanding, Miss Cardew. The gentleman who is now embracing you is my cousin, Mr. Algernon Moncrieff.
Algernon Moncrieff? Ew! Are you called Algernon?
I cannot deny it.
Is your name really John?
I could deny it if I liked. I could deny anything if I liked. But yes, my name's John. It's been John for years.
A gross deception has been practiced on both of us.
My poor wounded Cecily.
My sweet wronged Gwendolyn.
You will call me sister, will you not?
Certainly. There is one thing I should like to be allowed to ask my guardian, though.
An admirable idea. Mr. Worthing, there is one question I should like to be allowed to put to you. Where is your brother, Ernest? We are both engaged to be married to your brother, Ernest. So it is a matter of some importance to us to know where your brother, Ernest, is at present.
Gwendolyn. Cecily. It's very painful for me to be forced to speak the truth. In fact, it's the first time I've ever been put in such a painful position in my entire life. However, I will tell you that I don't have a brother, I've never had a brother, and I don't have any intention of having a brother in the future.
No brother at all?
None.
Have you never had a brother of any kind?
None, never of any kind.
I am afraid it is quite clear, Cecily, that neither of us is engaged to be married to anyone.
It is not a very pleasant position for a young girl to suddenly find herself in, is it?
Let us go into the house. They will hardly venture to come after us there.
No, men are such cowards, aren't they?
Pretty mess you've gotten me into. What on earth do you mean by coming down here and pretending to be my brother? It's perfectly monstrous of you.
What on earth do you mean by pretending to have a brother in the first place? It's absolutely disgraceful of you.
I had already ordered the dog cart for you at $3.50. Why didn't you take it?
Oh, I hadn't had my tea.
This ghastly state of things is what you call bun-burying, isn't it?
Oh, yes, and a wonderful bunbury it has been. In fact, it's the most wonderful bunbury I've ever had in my entire life.
Yes, well, you don't have any right to bunbury here.
Oh, one has the right to bunbury wherever one chooses. I'm a serious bunburyist knows that.
Serious bunburyist, good heavens!
Well, one must be serious about something if they want to have any amusement in life. I happen to be serious about bunburying. What on earth you're serious about? I haven't got the remotest idea. About everything, I should fancy. You have such a trivial nature.
Yes, well, the only satisfaction that I get out of this whole wretched business is that your friend Bunbury is quite exploded. You're not going to be able to come down to the country quite as often as you used to, dear Algie, and write a good thing, too.
Your brother's a little off-colour, isn't he, dear Jack? You won't be able to disappear to London quite so frequently as your wicked custom was. Not a bad thing either.
Yes, and as for your conduct towards Miss Cardew, I must say that your taking in of a sweet, innocent, charming young girl like that is perfectly inexcusable, and there is to say nothing for the fact that she's my ward.
I can find no possible defense at your deceiving a brilliant, clever, thoroughly experienced young lady like Miss Fairfax. To say nothing of the fact that she is my cousin.
I want to be married to Gwendolyn. I love her, that's all.
I merely want to be engaged to Cecily. I adore her.
Yes, but I don't see any chance of your union with Miss Cardew.
I don't see any likelihood, Jack, of you and Miss Fairfax being united.
It's no business of yours.
If it was my business, I wouldn't talk about it. Only stockbrokers do that. It's very vulgar. Oh, and merely at dinner parties.
How can you sit there calmly eating muffins when we're in this terrible trouble? I can't make out. You seem to me to be perfectly heartless.
Well, I can't eat muffins in that manner. The butter would probably get on my cuffs.
Algernon, I'm saying that it's heartless of you to be eating muffins at all under the circumstances.
Well, when I'm greatly distressed, food is the only thing that consoles me. In fact, when I am in really great trouble, as anyone who knows me intimately will tell you, I refuse everything except food and drink. At the present moment, I'm eating muffins because I am unhappy.
Well, that's no reason that you should eat them all in a greedy way.
I wish you would have the tea cake. I don't like tea cake.
Oh, good heavens. I suppose a man may eat his own muffins in his own house.
But you just said it was perfectly heartless to have muffins.
It is heartless of you to be having muffins. This is a completely different thing.
Yes, but the muffins are the same.
Algernon, I've asked you to go. Why don't you go?
Because I haven't had my dinner. You can't ask me to leave without having some dinner first. It's absolutely absurd. No man ever goes without dinner, except vegetarians and people like that. Besides, I've already made arrangements with Dr. Chasuble to be christened at 5:45 this afternoon under the name of Earnest.
My dear fellow, the sooner you give up that nonsense, the better. I've already made arrangements with Dr. Chasuble this morning to be christened at 5:30, and I naturally will be taking the name of Earnest. Gwendolyn would wish it. We can't both be christened as Earnest. That would be absurd. And besides, I have a perfect right to be christened if I would like. There's no evidence at all that I'd ever been christened by anybody. In fact, I think it very probable that I never was, and so does Dr. Chasuble. It's entirely different in your case, Algernon. You've been christened already.
Yes, but I've not been christened in years.
Yes, but you've been christened, and that's the main thing.
Quite so. So, I know my constitution can withstand it. If you're not quite sure of your ever being christened, I would think it very dangerous you're venturing on doing it now. It might make you very unwell. You seem to forget that someone very closely connected to you was nearly carried off this week in Paris by a severe chill.
You said that wasn't hereditary or anything terrible of that kind.
Oh, it used to be, but it may be now, my dear fellow. Science is making wonderful advancements in these things.
Yes, but what do you propose that I do?
Absolutely nothing. That is exactly what I've been trying to do for the last 10 minutes, and you have done everything in your power to distract my attention from my work.
Yes. Well, I'm going into the house to see Gwendolyn. I feel quite sure that she expects me.
I can tell from her extremely cold manner that Cecily expects me in the house. So I shan't go. A man should always do what a woman doesn't expect. When a man does what a woman expects, she doesn't think much of him. When a woman says exactly what she thinks, it is wrong. All right? Now,
I can't listen to you. I don't listen to you. This is nonsense. This is absolute nonsense.
No, it isn't. You know perfectly well you could listen to me if you tried. It is merely false modesty.
I don't, Algernon. I don't listen to you. I can't listen to you.
Yes, you can. I know you can. It is merely false modesty. You are always underrating yourself, Jack. Oh, it is an absurd thing to do nowadays. There's so many careless people about. It's so dreary. Please do not eat the muffins. I told you I love the muffins.
Yes, but I hate the tea cake.
Why do you offer tea cake to your house guests then? It is absolutely despicable of you.
That's not the point, Algernon. You can never stick to the point of any kind of conversation. It's perfectly maddening.
Yes, the point always hurts me.
Yes, affectation, Algernon. I loathe affectation.
If you don't like affectation, my dear fellow, I don't know what you can like. Besides, it isn't affectation. The point always hurts me because I hate physical pain of any kind.
I've already asked you to leave, Algernon. I don't want you here. Why don't you leave?
Because I haven't finished my tea. Besides, there's one muffin left.
Damn it all, come here! I'm going to get the muffin for you! Take the muffin from me!
Repentance. Well, they don't seem to notice us at all. Couldn't you cough or something? Oh, but I haven't got the cough. They're looking at us. What a effrontery! Oh, they're approaching. That's very forward of them. Oh, my goodness. Let us maintain a dignified silence.
Certainly. It is the only thing to do now.
Oh, shut up.
This dignified Quiet silence seems to produce an unpleasant effect.
A most distasteful one.
But we will not be the first to speak.
Certainly not.
Mr. Worthing, I have something very particular to ask you, and much depends on your reply.
Gwendolyn, what a noble nature you have. Mr. Moncrieff! Kindly answer me the following question. Why did you pretend to be my guardian's brother?
In order that I might have the opportunity of meeting you.
Oh, well, that certainly seems a satisfactory answer, does it not?
Oh, yes, dear, if you can believe him.
I don't, but that does not affect the wonderful beauty of his reply.
How true. In matters of grave importance, style and not sincerity is the vital thing. Mr. Worthing, what explanation can you possibly offer to me for pretending to have a brother? Was it in order that you might have an opportunity of coming up to town in order to see me as often as possible?
Can you doubt it, Miss Fairfax?
I have the gravest doubts upon the subject, but I intend to crush them. This is not the moment for German skepticism. Their answers seem to me to be quite satisfactory, especially Mr. Worthing's. That seems to have the stamp of truth upon it.
I am more than content with what Mr. Moncrieff said. His voice alone seems to inspire one with absolute credulity.
And you think we should forgive them?
Yes. I mean, no!
True! I had forgotten! There are matters at stake that one cannot surrender! Which of us should be the one to tell them? This task is not a pleasant one.
Could we not both speak at the same time?
An excellent idea! I always speak at the same time as other people. Will you take the time from me?
Certainly.
Your Christian names are still an insuperable barrier. That is all.
Our Christian names? Is that all? But we are to be christened this afternoon.
For my sake, you are prepared to do this terrible thing.
I am.
To please me, you are ready to face this fearful ordeal?
I am.
How absurd to talk of the equality of the sexes, where matters of self-sacrifice are concerned. Men are infinitely beyond us.
We are.
Oh, they have moments of physical courage of which we women know absolutely nothing.
Darling!
What? Good heavens! Good heavens! Fix me!
What does this mean?
Merely that I am engaged to be married to Mr. Worthing, Mamma.
Come here. Sit down immediately. Hesitation of any kind is a sign of mental decay in the young and in physical weakness in the old. Apprised, sir, of my daughter's sudden flight by her trusty maid whose confidence I purchased by means of a small coin. I followed her at once by luggage train. Her unhappy father is, I'm glad to say, under the impression she's attending a more than usually lengthy lecture by the University Extension Scheme on the influence of a permanent income on thought. I do not propose to undeceive him. Indeed, I have never underdeceived him on any question. I would consider it wrong. But of course, you'll understand that all communication between yourself and my daughter must cease immediately from this moment. On this point, as indeed on all points, I am firm.
I am engaged to be married to Gwendolyn, Lady Bracknell.
You are nothing of the kind, sir! And now as regards Algernon. Algernon!
Yes, Augusta.
May I ask if this is the house in which your invalid friend, Mr. Bunbury, resides?
Bunbury? No, Bunbury's not here. In fact, Bunbury is somewhere else at present. Yes, actually, Bunbury's dead.
Dead? When did Mr. Bunbury die? His death must have been extremely sudden.
Well, I killed him this afternoon. I mean, he died this afternoon.
What did he die of?
Oh, he's quite exploded.
Exploded? Was he the victim of a revolutionary outrage? I was not aware Mr. Bunbury was interested in social legislation. If so, he is well punished for his morbidity.
No. I mean that he was found out. Yes, the doctors found out that Bunbury could not live. So yes, Bunbury's dead.
Well, he seems to have had great confidence in the opinion of his physicians. I'm glad, however, he made up his mind at the last to some definite course of action and acted under proper medical advice. And now, Mr. Worthing, who is that young person whose hand my nephew is now holding in what seems to me a peculiarly unnecessary manner?
That is Miss Cecily Cardew, my ward.
Yes, this is Cecily. I'm engaged to be married to her.
I beg your pardon?
Mr. Moncrieff and I are engaged to be married, Lady Bracknell.
I do not know whether there's anything peculiarly exciting in the air of this particular part of Hertfordshire, but the number of engagements that go on seems to be considerably above the proper average that statistics have laid out for our guidance. I think some preliminary inquiries on my part would not be out of place. Mr. Worthing, is Miss Cardew at all connected to the larger railway stations in London? I merely desire information. Until yesterday, I had no idea there were any particular families or persons whose origin was a terminus.
Cecily Cardew is the granddaughter of Mr. Thomas Cardew of 149 Belgrave Square, SW, Garvey, Dorking, in the Sporian, Fisfordshire, NB.
Redress has always inspired confidence, even in tradesmen. What proof have I of their authenticity?
I have carefully preserved the court guides of the period, Lady Bracknell. They're open to your inspection.
I have known strange errors in that publication.
Miss Cardew's family messers are Markby, and Markby of 149A, Western Central District, London's Inn. And that is their address, and their time is from 4 to 10 p.m. You can ask them any questions if you'd like.
Markby, and Markby? A firm of the very highest position in their profession. I'm told one of the Mr. Markbys occasionally attends dinner parties. So far, I am satisfied.
I'm so pleased to hear it, Lady Bracknell. You'll also be pleased to hear that I have within my possession Miss Cardew's certificates of birth, whooping cough, vaccination, confirmation, registration, and the measles in both the English and German variety.
Ah, life crowded with incident, I see. Though perhaps somewhat too exciting for a young girl. I myself am not in favour of premature experiences. Gwendolen, the time approaches for our departure. We have not a moment to lose. As a matter of form, Mr. Worthing, I'd better ask you if Miss Cardew has any little fortune.
Oh, about £135,000 in the funds. That's all, Lady Bracknell. Goodbye, sir.
Mr. Worthing! £130,000. And in the funds? Oh, Miss Cardew seems to be the most attractive young lady now that I look at her. Oh, few girls of the present day have any of the really solid qualities. The qualities that last and improve with time. We live, I regret to say, in an age of surfaces. Oh, come here, dear. Oh, pretty child. Your dress is sadly simple, and your hair looks as nature might have left it, but we can soon alter all that. A thoroughly experienced French maid produces a marvellous result in a very brief space of time. I remember recommending one to young Lady Lansing, and after 3 months, her own husband did not know her.
And after 6 months, nobody knew her.
Oh, kind of child. No, the side view is what I want. The side view. Quite as I expected. There are distinct social possibilities in your profile. The chin a little higher, dear. Yes, the style largely depends on the way the chin is worn. They're worn very high, just as present. Algernon! Algernon!
Oh, yes, sir, yes.
There are distinct social possibilities in Miss Cardew's profile.
Cecily is the most prettiest, dearest, most wonderful girl in the whole world. I don't care 2 pence about social possibilities.
Never speak disrespectfully of society, Algernon. Only people who can't get into it do that. Of course, dear, you understand that Algernon has nothing but his debts to depend upon. I do not approve of mercenary marriages. Indeed, when I married Lord Bracknell, I had no fortune of any kind. But I never dreamed for a moment of allowing that to stand in my way. Well, I suppose I must give my consent.
Thank you, Aunt Augusta.
Cicely, you may kiss me.
Oh, thank you, Lady Bracknell.
And you may also call me Aunt Augusta for the future.
Thank you, Aunt Augusta.
Well, the marriage, I think, had better take place quite soon.
Thank you, Aunt Augusta.
Thank you, Aunt Augusta.
I'm not in favour of long engagements. They give people the opportunity of finding each other's character out before marriage, which I think is never advisable.
Pardon me, Lady Bracknell, but I'm afraid an engagement is quite out of the question. Miss Cardew is my ward, and I am her guardian, and she cannot marry without my consent until she comes of age, and that consent I completely decline to give.
Upon what grounds, may I ask? Algernon is an extremely, I may almost say ostentatiously eligible young man. He has nothing, but he looks at everything. What more can one desire?
Lady Bracknell, it pains me to speak frankly to you about your nephew. However, I'm afraid I don't quite approve of his moral character. I suspect him of being untruthful.
Untruthful? My nephew Algernon? Impossible. He is an Oxonian.
I'm afraid that there can be no possible doubt about the matter. This afternoon, He gained admission to my house under the false pretense of being my brother, and then drank, I've been informed by my butler, an entire pint of my 89 Jean-Pierre brut champagne that I was specifically reserving for myself. Then, continuing his disgraceful deceits, he succeeded in the course of the afternoon in alienating the only affections of my one and only ward. He subsequently stayed to tea, devoured every single muffin, and he knew from the start that I don't have a brother, I've never had a brother, and I don't have any intention of having a brother in the future. I told him myself yesterday afternoon, Lady Bracknell.
Yes, but Uncle Jack, you have been telling us all for the past year that you had a brother. You dwelt continually on the subject. Aldi merely corroborated your statement. It was noble of him.
Pardon me, Cecily, but I think that you're a bit too young to understand these matters. You see, to invent anything at all, is an act of sheer genius. It is something that in a commercial age such as ours proves great physical courage, and it's something that most of our modern novelists don't ever dare to do. It's an open secret that they don't know how to do it. Now, to corroborate a falsehood, on the other hand, is a distinctly ungentlemanly action. It's something that the newspapers do one for the other every single day. No gentleman ever corroborates anything.
Oh, upon my word, Jack!
Ahem! Mr. Worthing, after careful consideration, I have decided entirely to overlook my nephew's conduct to you.
That's very kind of you, Lady Bracknell. However, I am quite firm. I completely decline to give my consent.
Come here, pretty child. How old are you, dear?
Well, I am really only 18, but I always admit to 20 when I go to evening parties.
Oh, you are perfectly right in making some slight alteration. Indeed, no woman should ever be quite accurate about her age. It looks so calculating. 18, but admitting to 20 at evening parties. Well, it would not be long before you are of age and free from the restraints of tutelage, so I don't think your guardian's consent is, after all, a matter of any importance.
I'm sorry, Lady Bracknell, but I feel it only fair to inform you that according to the constraints of her grandfather's will, Cecily does not come of age until she is 35.
That does not seem to be a grave objection. 35 is a very attractive age. Indeed, London society is full of women of the very highest birth who, by their own free choice, have remained 35 for years. I see no reason why our dear Cecily should not be more attractive at the age you mentioned than she is at present. There will be a large accumulation of property.
Uncle Jack, you are quite sure that I cannot marry without your consent till I am 35?
This is the wise constraints of your grandfather's will, Cecily. He surely foresaw the difficulty that was likely to occur.
Well, then Grandpapa must have had a very active imagination. Algie, could you wait for me till I was 35? Don't speak hastily. It is a very important question, and much of my future happiness, as well as all of yours, depends on your reply.
Yes, of course I could. I could wait forever for you, Cecily. How could you ask such a thing?
Yes, I felt it instinctively. But I couldn't wait that long. I hate waiting, even 5 minutes for anybody. It always makes me rather cross. And waiting, even to be married, is quite out of the question.
Then what are we to do, Cecily?
I don't know, Mr. Moncrieff.
My dear Mr. Worthing, as Miss Cecily states positively that she cannot wait till she is 35, a remark which I am bound to say reveals somewhat of an impatient nature, I would strongly advise you to reconsider your decision.
Lady Bracknell, this decision is altogether in your hands. You see, the moment that you consent to my marriage with the sweet, beautiful Gwendolen, I will happily consent to the union between my ward and your nephew.
You must be quite aware that what you propose is out of the question.
Well, then a passionate celibacy is all that any of us have to look forward to.
That is not the destiny I propose for Gwendolen. Algernon can decide for himself. Come, dear. We've already missed 5, if not 6 trains. To miss any more might expose us to a comment on the platform.
Everything is quite ready for the christenings.
The christenings, sir? Is that not somewhat premature?
Oh, yes, these two gentlemen have expressed a desire for immediate baptism.
At their age, the idea is grotesque and irreligious. Algernon, I forbid you to be baptized. I will not hear of such excess. Lord Bracknell would be highly displeased if he learned that was the way in which you wasted your time and money.
Am I to understand there to be no christenings at all this afternoon?
I'm sorry, Dr. Chasuble, but seeing as the way that things are, I don't think it would do us much practical good anymore.
I am grieved to hear such sentiments from you, Mr. Worthing. They savor of the heretical views of the Anabaptists, views that I have completely refuted in 4 of my unpublished sermons. Baptismal regeneration is not to be lightly spoken of. Indeed, by the unanimous opinion of the fathers, baptism is a form of new birth. So I shall return to the church at once, for I've been informed by my pew opener that for the last hour and a half Miss Prism has been waiting for me in the vestry.
Prism? Did I hear you mention a Miss Prism?
Yes, Lady Bracknell, I'm on my way to join her.
Pray allow me to detain you for a moment. This matter may prove to be one of vital importance to Lord Bracknell and myself. Is this Miss Prism a female of repellent aspect, remotely connected with education?
She is the most cultivated of ladies and the very picture of respectability.
It is obviously the same person. May I ask what position she holds in your household?
I am a celibate, madam.
Miss Prism has been for the last 3 years Cecily's esteemed governess and valued companion.
In spite of what I hear, if I must hear at once, let her be sent for.
She approaches. She is nigh.
I was told you expected me in the vestry, dear Ken, and I've been waiting there for 1 hour and 3/4.
Prism! Come here, Prism. Prism, where is that baby? 28 years ago, Prism, you left Lord Bracknell's house, number 104, Upper Grosvenor Street, in charge of a preambulator that contained a baby of the male sex. You never returned! A few weeks later, through the elaborate investigations of the Metropolitan Police, the preambulator was discovered standing by itself in a remote corner of Baywater. It contained a manuscript of a 3-volume novel of more than usually revolting sentimentality, but the baby was not there! Prism, where is that baby?
I admit with shame, Lady Bracknell, that I do not know. I only wish I did. The plain facts of the case are these. On the morning of the day you mention, a day which is forever branded in my memory, I prepared as usual to take the baby out in its perambulator. I had also with me a somewhat old, capacious handbag in which I'd intended to place the manuscript of a work of fiction that I'd written during my few unoccupied hours. In a moment of mental abstraction for which I can never forgive myself, I deposited the manuscript in the bassinet and placed the baby in the handbag.
But what'd you do with the bag?
Do not ask me, Mr. Worthing.
Miss Prism, this is of no small importance to me. I must insist upon knowing where you placed the handbag that contained the infant.
I left it in one of the larger railways, the cloakrooms of one of the larger railway stations.
What line?
Victoria. High Sprite line.
I really hope nothing improbable is going to happen. The improbable is always in bad, or at any rate, questionable taste.
This news seems to have upset you, Mr. Worthing. I pray this is only temporary.
Yes, dear Canon, I'll be back in a moment. Gwendolyn, wait here for me a moment.
If you are not too long, I will wait for you all my life.
What do you think this means, Lady Bracknell?
I dare not even suspect, Dr. Chasuble. I need hardly tell you that in families of high position, strange coincidences are not supposed to occur. They are hardly considered the thing.
Uncle Jack seems strangely agitated.
Your guardian has a very emotional nature.
The noise is extremely unpleasant. He sounds as if he was having an argument with the furniture. I detest arguments of any kind. They are always vulgar and often convincing.
Oh, it has stopped now.
I wish you would arrive at some definite conclusion.
The suspense is terrible. I hope it will last.
Is this it? Is this it, Miss Prism? Is this the handbag that contained the infant? Examine it carefully before responding. The happiness of more than one life depends upon your reply.
It seems to be mine. Yes, here's the injury it received during the upsetting of a Gower Street omnibus in younger and happier days. Here's the stain on the lining caused by the explosion of a temperance beverage, an incident that occurred at Leamington. And here on the look are my initials. I'd forgotten that in extravagant mood I'd had them placed there. This bag is undoubtedly mine. I'm delighted to have it so unexpectedly restored to me. It's been a great inconvenience being without it all these years.
More than that has been restored to you, Lady Bracknell. I was the baby in the handbag.
No!
Yes!
Worthing, I'm unmarried!
Oh, unmarried. Oh, I'm sorry. That is undoubtedly a serious blow. But who has the right to cast a stone at one who has suffered so much? After all, cannot repentance wipe out any act of folly? And after all, why should there be one law for men and then another law for women? I think it's completely absurd. Mother, I forgive you.
Mr. Worthing, there's some error. Maternity has never been an incident in my life. suggestion, if we're not made for such a large number of people, would be almost indelicate. There stands the lady who can tell you who you really are.
Pardon me, Lady Bracknell, for asking so many questions. But would you be so kind as to inform me as to who I am?
I'm afraid the news I have to give you will not altogether please you. You are the son of my poor sister, Miss Moncrieff. Consequently, Algernon's elder brother.
Algy's brother? So I have a brother after all! I knew it! I knew I had a brother! How could you have ever doubted that I had a brother, Cecily? Oh, Gwendolyn, my unfortunate brother. Dr. Chasuble, my unfortunate brother. Miss Prism, my unfortunate brother. You young scoundrel! You've never treated me like a brother a single day in your life! You're gonna have to treat me with more respect in the future!
Well, not till today, old boy. I admit I'm a little out of practice.
Age and unforeseen circumstances. You may kiss your Aunt Augusta.
I'm dazed with happiness. I don't even know who I'm kissing.
Oh, my goodness. Well, I hope that will be the last time I will ever hear you make such an observation.
It will, darling, it will.
Mr. Worthing, Mr. Moncrieff, as I should call you now, after what has just occurred, I feel it my duty to resign my position in your household. Any inconvenience I may have caused you in your infancy by placing you inadvertently in a handbag, I sincerely apologize for.
Oh, don't mention it, Miss Prism. Don't mention anything. I'm sure I was perfectly happy in the handbag in spite of the injury that it received from the overturning of an omnibus in your younger and happier years. And as for the idea of you leaving us, I think it's absolutely absurd.
It is my duty to leave. I really have nothing more to teach, dear Cecily. In the very difficult accomplishment of getting married, I feel my sweet and clever pupil has far outstripped her teacher.
One moment. Letitia?
Frederick?
Letitia, I've come to the conclusion that the primitive church was in error on certain points. Corrupt readings seem to have crept into the text. I beg to solicit the honor of your hand.
Frederick, at the present moment, words fail me to express my feelings, but I will forward you this evening the 3 last volumes of my diary in which you'll be able to peruse the full account of the sentiments that I've entertained towards you for the last 18 months.
Lady Bracknell's flyman says he cannot wait any longer.
True. I must return to town at once. I see I've now missed no less than 9 trains. That is only 1 more. Prism, from your last observation to Dr. Chasuble, I learned with regret that you have not yet given up your passion for fiction in 3 volumes. And if you really are going to enter into a state of matrimony, which at your age seems to me, I'm bound to say, rather like flying into the face of an all-wise providence, I sincerely trust you will be more careful of your husband than you were of your infant charge, and not leave poor Dr. Chasuble lying about at a railway station or in handbags or receptacles of any kind. Cloakrooms are notoriously draughty places. Dr. Chasuble, you have my sincere good wishes, and if baptism be, as you say it is, a form of new birth, I would strongly advise you to have Miss Prism baptized without delay. To be born again would be of considerable advantage to her. Whether such a procedure be in practice with accordance to the primitive church, I do not know, but it's hardly probable, I should fancy, that they've had to grapple with such extremely advanced problems. My dear Cecily, we shall expect to see you in Upper Grosvenor Street in a few days' time.
Thank you, Aunt Augusta.
Come, Gwendolyn.
My own? But what own are you? What is your Christian name now that you have become someone else?
Oh, well, I've quite forgotten that point. I suppose your decision upon my name's irrevocable?
I never change except in my affections.
The question had better be cleared up at once. Aunt Augusta, I have one question to put to you. At the time that I was placed in the handbag, had I been christened already? Please speak carefully. This is a terrible crisis, and everything depends upon the nature of your reply.
Every luxury that money could buy, including christening, had been lavished on you by your fond and doting parents.
All right. Then it's settled. I'd been christened. But under what name was I christened? Tell me the worst.
Naturally, being the eldest son, you were christened after your father.
Yes, but what was my father's Christian name? Don't speak so calmly, Aunt Augusta. This is a terrible crisis, and everything depends upon your answer. What was my father's Christian name?
I cannot at the present moment recall what the General's Christian name was. Your poor dear mother always addressed him as General. That I remember perfectly. Indeed, I don't think she would dare call him by his Christian name, but I have no doubt he had one. He was violent in his manner, but there was nothing eccentric about him in any way. That was rather the result of the Indian climate and marriage and indigestion and other things of that kind. In fact, he was rather martinet about the little details of daily life. Too much so, I used to tell my sister.
Algernon, Please tell me, can't you remember the Christian name of your own father?
Oh, we were never on speaking terms, my dear fellow. He died before I was a year old.
Well, then his name should be in the army list of the period, shouldn't they?
The general was essentially a man of peace, except in his domestic life, but I have no doubt his name would appear in any military directory.
Yes, well, I have the military directories from the last 40 years here. Here. Dr. Chasuble, Miss Prism, 2 for you. And Cecily, here's an army list, make private at once. Miss Aunt Augusta, I pray that you bring your masculine mind to bear upon this subject. And Gwendolyn, Gwendolyn, forget it. I think this might be a bit too agitated for you. Perhaps you should leave the researches to the less philosophic types like the rest of us.
Give me 6 copies of any century, this one or the last, I do not care which.
I'll give you a dozen. I think more might inconvenience you. Oh, okay. There you are. There you are, Gwendolyn. Oh, actually, give me this one. It's falling off. Nope. No, I don't want this one.
What station, Mr. Moncrieff, did you say you wish to go to?
Station? I'm looking for my father's Christian name, not my grandfather.
You've handed me a Bradshaw of 1869, I observe. A book of considerable antiquarian interests, but not in any way conferring on the names of generals at baptism.
I am so sorry, Uncle Jack, but generals do not seem to be even alluded to in the history of our own times, though it is the very best edition, the one written in collaboration with a typewriting machine.
To me, Mr. Moncrieff, you have given 2 copies of the price list of the civil service stores. I do not see generals marked anywhere. They seem to abide no demand or no supply.
This treatise, The Green Carnation, as I see it is called, seems to be a book about the culture of exotics. It contains no reference to generals in it. Seems a morbid and middle-class affair.
Algernon, what nonsense are you reading? What's this? An army list of the period? I suppose you didn't even know that it was an army list of the period. And look, the thing's right there in front of you, and you didn't even know. It's right here. Look. Generals, colonels, oh my goodness, these are the most ghastly names. Migsby, Maltby, Moncrieff, here it is. Moncrieff, generals, colonels, 1864 to 1840. Christian names, Earnest, John. I always told you my name was Ernest. It's Ernest after all. I mean, naturally, it's Ernest.
I remember now the general's name was Ernest. I knew I had some particular reason for disliking the name. Gwendolyn.
Ernest, my own Ernest, I felt from the first that you could have no other name.
Letitia! Frederick, at last!
Oh, Cecily, at last!
Gwendolyn, at last!
I missed the last train! My nephew, you seem to be displaying signs of triviality.
On the contrary, Lady Bracknell, I finally discovered the vital importance of being honest.